I'm going to do two things. First of all, thank you, LaGrange, for allowing us to be here on today in this beautiful, beautiful weather and beautiful city and this beautiful college. Before we get started, I'm going to do two things. I'm just going to ask if we can just pause for a minute in memory of one of our congressmen who was a true soldier for the United States of America. Unfortunately, this morning we heard the unfortunate news that Congressman Elijah Cummings passed away. So we just want to take time to give a moment of silence for the Honorable Congressman Elijah Cummings.
Father God, we thank you for this opportunity. We thank you for this day that you have given that was not promised. Father God, we ask that you come in. We invite you in, Father God. We invite you in, Holy Spirit, to come and work in us, through us, and for us. Let your will be done. Let the glory always be given to you. We thank you for our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. We ask that you bless every mind, soul, and spirit in attendance, and those that are on their way, and those that could not make it, Father God. We ask that your will be done. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. Well, let me say this. I want to thank two-time Super Bowl champion and the son of LaGrange, Georgia, Mr. Tyrone Poole, for leading us in a word of prayer. We're here. This is our fourth meeting. I'm Chairman and State Representative Carl Gilliard. We are elated to be here in LaGrange, Georgia, and talking with your chief just a few minutes ago and having a great conversation. I'm reminded that Georgia has a defining moment in front of us, and I'm reminded that we have an opportunity to seize this moment where we have an issue of 71,000 identified members of gangs. 1,400 or so right in my own community that we've identified, so we're not ashamed to look at and call it for what it is, that we have a defining moment and a problem. And the only way that we're going to be able to rectify this problem is by coalition, by coming together, by breaking the cycles of, doesn't matter which party, the party that we're on right now is Georgia. And so today I'm elated that we have committee members with us on today from the Department of DHS, probably one of the hardest working persons in Georgia. Commissioner Crittenden is here, and I'm excited about her involvement because we're going to be able to work with all the different departments that she has, all the different parts of that department, to see what we can do on a preventive level, all the families and all the different entities that she represents. So thank you, Commissioner, for your service. And then we have Commissioner that is new with us on today, Commissioner Oliver. Came right into this with a lot of foresight that the juvenile justice system has some work ahead of it. And I'm glad that the governor appointed a visionaire that had experience from being a former chief he came right in. I think you acquired some whiskers since then. I did. But Commissioner, thank you so much. We're looking forward to working with you, and thank you for your service. We also have with us from Savannah, Georgia. Savannah Youth City is an intricate part of their hands-on approach with working with those elements that are out there in the community, young people, young adults, breaking the cycle of recidivism, giving alternatives. And Beverly Trotter is representing us on the committee on today. In absence of state representatives that are a part of this, as well as other committee members, we are privileged to have one of our ambassadors who is on the battlefield. And I work with Tyrone Poole. He has a passion for making the realities of prevention and family and programs, so he's joining us on today. This is our fourth meeting, and our focus is that we have until November the 15th is our final meeting in Atlanta. And we have focused and heard from the GBI, the Sheriff's Association, the police chiefs, We've heard from youth programs. We've heard from all of the entities of mental health, programs that are doing the preventive, programs that are doing the economic development. And on today, our hopes are that we can reveal some more information on the retail side of industry that's being affected with the problems of gangs. And we have GMA, who is the Georgia Municipal Association, that has been sending surveys out to over 159 counties, because we want to get the information from all of those different municipalities of wraparound services, preventive programs. What are we doing? The chief was showing me a cache array of programs that they have in LaGrange, and I was really impressed from reentry to putting our focus on the needs of children that come to school that are homeless or have issues. Today we have with us also the Southern Christian Leadership Foundation, an organization that was formed in the civil rights movement under Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and artists like Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte and others. The executive director is here, Ms. Bernice Frazier is here. And so we're looking at programs that will hopefully benefit us. I'm not going to prolong this great meeting, and I feel this is going to be a great meeting. I want to bring to your attention the actual matriarch of this city, the patriarch of this city even. Mayor Jim Thornton is with us on today, the mayor of LaGrange, Georgia. Would you give him a hand as we welcome him on today?
I'm not sure if this is working, but good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for hosting this committee meeting here in LaGrange. I'm delighted to welcome you to our city. Hope you have a good day today, and certainly hope that if there's anything you need from our city and from our hospitality departments, that you please let me know. I'm delighted that you are giving the focus and attention that you are to gangs and youth violence prevention throughout the state. This is an issue that none of us are immune to, and certainly we have not been immune to it in LaGrange. It's probably, and you'll hear from our chief in a minute with a lot more detail, but it's certainly nothing new for any of our communities. But a few years ago, it sort of came to our attention that we did have some significant issues with organized gang activities in our city. And over the past few years, the mayor and council of LaGrange, working with our police chief and our district attorney and other partners at the state, have really made this a focus for how can we respond both on the enforcement and the prevention side for addressing this issue of gang violence in our community. I think we've had some success, but there's a lot more to do. I think what is interesting about our experience is we have over the past 5 years added about 10 new police officers to our police department. So that was going from 80 to 90 approximately sworn officers. That's a significant increase for a town of our size. We have spent a lot of money, thousands of dollars, on technology and on social media analysis and things of that sort, cameras to try and address this. We have also funded a position in the district attorney's office. In our district attorney's office for Cranford, we allocate $75,000 a year to the district attorney's office to help provide a dedicated prosecutor in that office. As part of the additional positions that we've added, those included patrol officers, they also included gang investigators, gang analysts, and importantly, community outreach officers to our staff. And I think that the message is that this is costing our local communities a lot of money, but we have an issue that we have to respond to and we have to address. We have to do it on both the enforcement side as well as the prevention side and the community outreach side. And so we have tried to take that holistic approach. I'm reminded that Governor Deal used to use the expression, he would say that there were some people we're mad at and others we're afraid of. And I think that the challenge for us going forward is to figure out how we do a better job of triaging that. How we get to the youth and the children in our community that maybe have made some bad decisions, but they're not bad kids, and they just need to be refocused, and they need to have intervention, and they need to have a support system, a wraparound service type support system provided to them. And then there are obviously some that we are afraid of, and that we do need to have removed from the environment, because they're at the point where they're going to cause violence and danger to our community. But I think the important message from our experience in LaGrange, and I think this is true across the state, because no city is immune to this. I serve as vice president of the Georgia Municipal Association, and so I attend lots of GMA meetings, and we talk about issues of violence and gang violence in our meetings, is that you have to be willing to acknowledge it. You have to be willing to acknowledge it. I will tell you that as mayor, I've been criticized by members of our community for acknowledging that we had a gang problem, because people wanted me to take the more of the rosy Chamber of Commerce approach of saying, everything's lovely, we have no problems in our community, right? That's a recipe for long-term disaster if you deny a problem and you don't acknowledge it and try to address it. We've taken just the opposite approach. We have tried to acknowledge it, we've tried to dedicate resources to it. It hasn't bothered me that there have been front-page news articles in the LaGrange Daily News about the hundreds of thousands of dollars that we were spending on gang violence prevention and enforcement. I'm proud of that. I think that's something that we should celebrate, that our city council, have one city council member here today, Councilman Mark Mitchell, who is a retired state patrol officer, is with us, and obviously very familiar with public safety. We've acknowledged it, we've addressed it head on. And I think the proof is in the pudding, because in the last 5 years that we have been spending hundreds of thousands of dollars and talking directly about gang and youth violence in our community, we've recruited Great Wolf to our community. We've recruited the corporate headquarters of Jindal Films that relocated from New York to LaGrange. We've seen the expansion of the Duracell plant and hundreds of jobs where they consolidated their AA and AAA battery production here in LaGrange from South Carolina, and the list could go on. I could sit here and talk about the Courtyard by Marriott downtown, which located here just 2 years ago. So the fact that we're talking about it is not doing anything to harm our economic development and our growth. I have housing developers beating down my door wanting to talk about doing housing developments in our community. So we're a growing community, and I think that it's because we don't deny problems, but we acknowledge them and try to address them. And that's something that I think business appreciates and industry appreciates, that we are confronting our issues head on. And I think that's a model that all of our cities need to address, because I'm telling you, regardless of how many mayors across the state may say we don't have a gang problem in our community, they're wrong. Because it is a problem, as you mentioned, the 70,000 identified gang members statewide. It's a problem throughout our state. Nobody is immune. And my final point is, I appreciate the concern at the state level from both the legislature as well as the state agencies and nonprofit organizations, because it's a problem that we're only going to be able to solve by all working together collectively. And I can tell you, both on behalf of LaGrange, and I think I speak for all of the GMA mayors across the state, saying that your cities and your local communities are looking forward to opportunities to work with you to try to find holistic solutions to this problem that we face. Thank you again, and I'm delighted that you're having this meeting in LaGrange.
Thank you. Let me say this in the presence of the mayor and council. It's a delight when we first partaked upon forming this study committee. The Bible says study to show yourself approved. And so I began to look over the cities, Atlanta, Columbus, Augusta, Albany. And even for a city of this size, I commend you all, because you can see the programs and the effort that's in place in reference to coalition. When I talked with Tyrone Poole, and he bragged about his city, he talked about the coalition and the effort. So this is a model city for the state of Georgia to get involved. And I do want to commend you and the leadership of this city for taking an initiative to say we do have a problem, but also trying to focus on addressing it. Thank you so much for your participation. We have with us Chief Louis Dekmar, who is here, and we have a presentation. And Chief, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Good morning and thank you. How do I work the PowerPoint from here? Okay, I'll just nod at you. Okay, very good. And it was up earlier, I don't see it. While he's preparing, just a few comments. You know, like every community, when I came here in 1995, we had local gangs. Usually these were neighborhood focused, and that was in 1995. We became aware of their significance as it related to school-age children when one of our DARE officers saw gang graffiti, local gang graffiti, that was on notebooks that the kids were carrying. The faculty members thought that that was just art. So we recognized in 1997 we had to start doing some education for our school folks, and we got that support. And so every year, every other year, we would do a training when the school teachers would come back in the fall and kind of sensitize them to the gang graffiti, gang signs, and that sort of thing. In early, 2008, 2009, we started seeing some remote affiliation with national gang organizations, Blood, Crips, Disciples. Not significant, but enough that it was concerning. So we sent one of our investigators to become a certified gang investigator, which I think was an additional 40 hours training, I think it was a week. That allowed him to start concentrating on gangs, and it also allowed him to develop an expertise, which later we could exploit in court, having him qualify as an expert and help the court and the juries understand the nature of gangs, the organization, and how gang affiliation ties into gang crimes. We're also very fortunate in Georgia in that it probably has one of the most robust gang statutes in the country. Talking to my colleagues around the nation, it's clear that we are very progressive in terms of recognizing how gangs work and how important it is once you find that nexus crime to also tack on you know, the enhancement of the gang consequence through those statutes. I would characterize our position on gangs as tough on crime, but soft on people, meaning that we look for opportunities to exit folks from gangs. We look at opportunities through prevention. We look at opportunities through education. We also look at opportunities once those folks are taken into custody to do some sort of an assessment to determine what is what's the nature of their commitment to the gang, and are there some opportunities to wean them from the gang based on the opportunities the criminal justice system would present to them. We can go ahead and I think we're prepared. This kind of gives you a snapshot of what I covered briefly. 2009, as I indicated, is when we had the certified gang investigator, and at that time we were one of 2 agencies in the state that had a certified gang investigator. We started seeing the affiliation, and it kind of crystallized in 2013, where in one of our parks we had 7 folks shot in one incident. And it was 2 rival gangs that were in the park, and you know what started out as the equivalent of a push and shove ended up into an exchange of gunfire that resulted in 7 individuals shot. Thankfully, no one was fatally injured. After that incident, I met with our district attorney, Pete Scandalakis. Told him that the concern that we had with the increase in gang activity. Asked if he would be willing to spearhead and chair a gang task force, if you will, which would be made up of our jurisdictions, Sheriff's Office, Police Department, but also a lot of the gang activity we were seeing were coming from Hogansville, coming from West Point, coming from Alabama, eastern Alabama, and from Noonan. And so we wanted all those counties and jurisdictions involved so that we could start the flow of information back and forth that would help us identify threats before they resulted in another incident similar to this. The district attorney immediately said yes. He appointed one of his assistant district attorneys as a coordinator, and we would once a month have those task force meetings where we exchange the information in the grand jury room at the courthouse here in Troup County. Another need that we saw, and I would recommend, you know, if I'm in a position to recommend, or at least suggest, and I saw this in Illinois, looking at some of their gang cases. They have a program where anybody in the state can enter gang information. And if we have somebody here that we think is affiliated with a gang, we can enter that, and it'll tell us what jurisdictions have entered information, but they won't tell us the information. So each agency still controls the information. The agency making the inquiry is alerted that if you contact this agency, they can share some more information with you. This allows you to track and identify gang members across the state. And it also allows, though, for the integrity of that information to remain with the agency. So not anybody can get on there, access that information, and then share it inappropriately. There's some sort of accountability in terms of, excuse me, in terms of who gets that information, why was it related, and always you would have to have a case number, much like when you enter something on NCIC, you would have to have a case number that would track back. So if there was improper use of that gang information, there would be accountability for it. We do that now with GCIC. You know, if you run somebody's tag, we're able to trace back if it was inappropriate, when that tag was run and who ran it, and it's a criminal offense if you do that inappropriately. So I think there could be something that could be very similar to that shape that would allow the free flow of information that would, I think, be very beneficial for public safety. Here, though, the district, or I think through PAC, Prosecuting Attorneys Council, we had the opportunity to buy into Formuletics. And Formuletics is a database software system that allows those agencies to participate to share gang information, including the prosecutor's office. I think our city council and mayor approved $25,000 a year for us to participate in that. Another expense and a real need is just a whole robust system as it relates to data analysis and collection. We rely heavily on social media. And I would appreciate it for the media here if they would de-emphasize how much we rely on social media. We get a subpoena or a search warrant for a data dump on social media or for geo-locating on cell phones to see if somebody that we suspect was in the area at the time of the shooting based on their cell phone location. And then you get all the phone numbers they called. We do a data dump, and literally, you could have millions of pieces of information, virtually impossible to go through. But with the programs that we bought, we're able to sift through that and make those connections to show the relationships to different individuals in the gangs. So some sort of consideration as it relates to a robust system of exchange of information and analysis of data that's gathered during the course of a gang investigation. The other that we relied heavily on, and it's not up here, are cameras. I think 2 of our last 6 or 7 homicides have essentially been solved with nothing but cameras. Cameras and LPRs, license plate recognition. We had one where they came from Mississippi and killed one of their colleagues because and during the shooting in friendly fire, they hit one, left them here, and all we have is somebody from Mississippi. But through canvassing, we were able to track them through our cameras, and then a series of cameras down the interstate and private service stations and that sort of thing. So a consideration as it relates, and I don't know if this would be perhaps something like some sort of technological platform where you got a community, say, that's small, doesn't have a lot of money, ate up with gangs. You can go in there and infuse that community for a period of time with that technology that will help them identify and prosecute those folks that are creating the problems in their jurisdiction. Excuse me. And then funding from City Council. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to have the support of the elected officials. And that's why, it's a real pleasure to see you all here, because this isn't going to be an issue that's going to be solved by the state. This is going to be an issue that's going to be solved by the state and local communities working together and leveraging those relationships and a partnership that I think will provide even more effective results than what we've seen. I think in 2013 we had almost 36 gang shootings in the city. I think last year we had 4, and I believe so far this year we've had 3. So the results are very clear, but also during that time we've had significant arrests and prosecutions, which I'll touch on in a little bit. This is the makeup of our gang squad, which falls under our Special Investigations Unit. Our Special Investigations Unit is responsible for drugs, prostitution, and alcohol enforcement in gangs. And the gang squad is under that unit. We have 2 full-time investigator positions, 1 full-time gang analyst. He has a master's degree from, I think, University of Georgia, yes. And he came to us through a program at Armstrong where they do the analytics for hard drives related to crime. And so we were very fortunate to be able to attract them. And again, it was because of the competitive salaries that we were able to offer, again, through support of our elected officials. I alluded already to formuletics and how we use that. And then also the various analytic programs that allow us to search the different databases that during the course of either investigation or we obtain through search warrant or consent, cell phone records, and social media. Since 2013, when I approached our district attorney and he agreed to have his agency chair our gang initiative, we've seen 300 in LaGrange, we've seen 300 street gang members arrested. Of those, we have a 98% conviction rate. An important aspect, an element of that is before we make a gang case against somebody, it's heavily vetted. It's got to be reviewed by the supervisor. The supervisor has to approve. We also run it by the assistant district attorney, and he or she has to approve it. I think we have an excellent statute. The way to lose a good tool is to abuse it. So making sure that only those folks that you can justify in the mind of the public that's affected by it. And as you all well know, gangs, for the most part, have taken advantage of our marginalized communities to offer them and suggest a way of life that's going to be much better than what they have. And so ensuring that you use these statutes in a way that doesn't divide the community, and that is a very delicate line to walk. For a lot of reasons, but having a process in place so that these cases are vetted in a way that doesn't allow for the abuse of that statute. We've already talked about the full-time assistant district attorney who is here with me, Jack Winnie, and if you have any questions as it relates specifically to the prosecutor's role, I would certainly encourage you to call Jack up and chat with him. Something else, and this is something that recognizing just the historic challenges that policing have had in some communities. We've had, I think, for almost 20 years, a mandatory record policy where every contact with a citizen is recorded. Before body cams, we would use our audio packs on our in-car cameras. So even though you couldn't video it, you could hear if they're in the apartment, you could hear the recording of the dialogue that's going on. If it happened in front of the vehicle, then of course you have the benefit of that recording. We got body cams, I think, in 2009 when they first came out, so we've had body cams for 10 years. All the convulsing I hear around the nation about body cams, I don't understand, but everybody, including our detectives and our drug investigators, were body cams. Again, for transparency, can very quickly get the facts, can also very quickly resolve complaints when folks hear something and then the rumor becomes the fact, and you get people that come in, look at it, and clarify. We've seen certainly more than one occasion where a mom has shown up raising sand about what we did to her 15-year-old, and as soon as they've seen that video, that hostility is retargeted. And that's what we want. We want parents to be able to see that the police are a partner. They're not someone that's intentionally trying to antagonize what can be a difficult situation for some folks. So again, transparency, response, strict protocols relates to complaints, with those findings being available to anybody that wants them, along with the footage. Our supervisors are authorized, if someone comes in during that shift and makes a complaint, to bring them in and go through the body cam with them. And what we often find is their perception of what happened is not supported by video. So it quickly addresses that issue. Our gang squad intelligence efforts, I've alluded to. As you can see, there's a host of them. A couple of others, and this speaks to the relationships that we have with our state partners. Community supervision, of course, which is the old parole and probation, and then our juvenile justice folks, because so often these youngsters are becoming involved in gang activity. We know in our schools they're actively recruiting in the 3rd grade, and so having those relationships, particularly as it relates to taking advantage of the waiver, where folks generally on parole or probation sign a 4th Amendment waiver that allow us quickly to go into some of these homes in search when we believe that they've been involved in a gang shooting, and try to recover evidence, including the firearm. We go ahead, next slide. Thank you. Continuing, all the validated members have a safe intelligence profile, which means that we have a schedule where if we get intelligence or information that somebody's a member of a gang, we have to review that on a schedule of time. If we don't have new information, then we purge it. So if somebody is mentioned as a potential gang member, we can't verify it over a period of time. Then what we don't do is keep their name in the system, where 6 years later somebody makes an inquiry and it pops up that they're a gang member, which can also certainly create some issues for them. Profiles also allow us to show the progression of individuals. Say we identify, or somebody calls us and say such and such is in a gang and has been threatening in the neighborhood. Once we put them in the database and we're able to link them through either social media or some other factors, we can show are they progressing in terms of their activity in the gang, so that if in fact they're involved in a gang crime, we can show that progression of affiliation as part of the enhancement for the gang statute. And again, also allows us to track their active membership and the lineage as we look at the gangs as a whole. Community initiatives, I think we've got something like 38 About 10 of them are specific to gangs. The others touch or influence potentially gang affiliation. It starts with our LEAD program. I know y'all are aware of DARE. What we found though is DARE was too constrictive, and it didn't allow for the emphasis on anti-gang education. So we went with LEAD several years ago, which has a specific component on gang and bullying. We also work with various staffing agencies, our temporary employers, our temp agencies, so that folks that we know are trying to get their act together, but they can't get a job, we can assure, the employers that, okay, we've got evidence, or at least the indications to us are that this would be potentially a good hire for you. We're so committed to the outreach notion that we took a police officer position, and the mayor alluded to this, and changed it into a caseworker position, where our officers, the dirty little secret about policing, about law enforcement, is it isn't. We don't do law enforcement. We do policing. About 90% of what we do does not result in an arrest. For example, in LaGrange, we'll run between 55 and 60,000 calls a year. Of those, we'll make less than 5,000 arrests, which means 90% of the time we're doing something short of arrest. The dirty little secret is we're social workers. We do a lot of mediation, a lot of referral, a lot of mitigation, a lot of hookups with other agencies. And so our officers recognize that, but they don't have the time bouncing call to call to call to engage these folks with the agencies that they need. So they refer these cases to our caseworker, who has relationships with over 70 nonprofits, faith community groups, and other government agencies, and will try to act as an ombudsman to hook them up with those services. By doing that, we're not going to the same place over and over and over again, so it certainly helps us in terms of our calls for service. But more importantly, it provides an opportunity for somebody that's been struggling to get their act together and be able to take advantage of these resources that many times they don't know are available. And it can be anything from, we get a call from community support that says, hey, I got a guy who's got a job, he's got no transportation. We have a bunch of bikes that nobody's claimed, so we give them a bicycle. It could be, we've got somebody that has the ability to get DFACS benefits or Medicare or Medicaid or Social Security, and they don't know how to fill out the form. We know how to fill them out, or we know how to get them to the folks that can help them fill them out. And those kind of things help build the trust that you need, so when you're doing the enforcement part of it, and you have a challenge, or there is an outcome that people perceive as negative, you have the trust to give you the time to sort it out. Trust doesn't buy you a pass, it buys you time to sort these issues out. We also work with New Ventures, which has an earn to learn, where first time offenders can spend 4 hours a day working on their GED, and then 4 hours for work that they get paid for. And that's right there at New Ventures, and they have dozens of folks that they support in that initiative. Next one, please. Teen Fusion. That's an initiative through the Boys and Girls Club, help provide safe environment for them when they're not in school. Our gang squad officers also volunteer significant amounts of time coaching and interacting, so that folks just don't see them in that law enforcement or police role. They also see them in the community involved in other ways. We are also selected as one of the FBI's, through the U.S. Attorney, Safe Streets Task Force in Project Safe Neighborhood, and we leverage that relationship in a way to take advantage of prosecutions that would be better served at the federal level as opposed to just the state. We also have relationships with AT&F, so that when we get the shell casings in some of these shootings, that we can submit those to IBRIS, and the ballistic examination. It's what is it? Integrated ballistic. It compares the, I forget what the thing is, but it compares the shell casings with missiles, the bullets. And so we've been able, matter of fact, I think in this last month, we were able to match up, and this is where we had an arrest, match up the shell casings here with a homicide in DeKalb County, because they also contribute. So anyone that contributes to the IBRS system, what it does, it allows you to take advantage of that information based on shell casings and missiles. I think we're ready for the next one. Gang awareness presentations, we do a bunch of those. We do them in the schools, churches, business, civic organizations. Again, as the mayor said, we want our community to know that all communities have gang issues. The difference between our community and others is that we're addressing them in a lot of different ways, and we need the public to act as our eyes and ears so that if they see something that's concerning, they share it with us, whether it be at the 3rd grade level or something in their neighborhood. Similarly with Teen Maze is an interactive scenario-based training where kids, we put it on, we work with the school system over the period of a week, and it allows them judgment and decision-making experiences related to drugs, alcohol, gang recruitment, and violence. And then again, all the different alliances that we have throughout the community. This is some specific gang community initiatives where we teach classes in our police academy to both. We run 3 citizen police academies, and I think we're fixing to run 4 for preachers. We've got one for adults, we've got one for senior citizens, and we have one for teens. And the one for teens we use as a summer camp, and the response has been so positive that we've had to run 2. So we're running about 80 to 100 kids in those programs. Gang investigators also assist. We've been recognized throughout the state as experts in this area from our colleagues. So our folks that are involved in this, including Jack, was presented at the International Association of Chiefs of Police, in addition to being involved in with POST and developing the lesson plans for the curriculum and training officers statewide as it relates to gangs, and then the various partnerships. And this is a list of some of the partnerships. It's not exhaustive because every time I turn around, we're talking about something. I go, I didn't put that on my list. And you all alluded to a couple of them. One is mental health. I mean, that's where I see from a local level our challenges on the mental health field is the community-based support isn't there. Our community's done a good job of stepping up. We sponsored a mental health court in the individual cities, and the county paid for it. It was working so well that within a year, the state assumed funding of it. But in that situation, we identified 25 folks that were responsible for almost 200 arrests. And since we've had that program for 5 or 6 years, I think we've had 3 re-arrests. We've had women that have been able to get their children back, folks that have been able to hold a job. So life-changing opportunities if we engage these partnerships in a way that benefit our community. And then finally, the whole challenge with all this stuff is the issue of race. Those are always very difficult conversations. They're always, from a law enforcement standpoint, when you do law enforcement, it's always exacerbated by race. I oftentimes spend the first 30 minutes of dealing with a citizen that's frustrated by something, developing some trust because they don't trust the police generally. And our challenge as an institution is for that personal trust that we've developed over time to translate into institutional trust. But that kind of is a snapshot of what we've been up to. I'll be happy to address any questions. I seldom have an answer. I always have a response.
Chief, let me say this to you all. you have more staff than what the governor has appropriated for the state of Georgia dealing with gangs. $500,000 was appropriated for one person to travel through 159 counties. And so I want to applaud you again proactively for what the city of LaGrange has done in reference to staffing, in reference to the people that you focus on the preventive level. How has what you put in place kind of, when you look at the numbers, what has it done to the numbers of possible murders or trends in reference to arrests? Has it broken the recidivism of those crimes?
Our gang really, there's two responses. One is overall gun violence. Gun violence, if you look at our ag assault numbers, our population's increased 20% roughly in the last 20 years. But our violent crime has dropped 50%. But we see that younger folks, younger African American folks are involved in firearm violence at a much younger age than you were seeing in the 90s. And so gun violence among youth, particularly marginalized communities, we've seen an increase, although the overall numbers are still down. But I'm thinking year-to-date to October 7th, for aggravated assaults, we've had 81. Compared to the same time last year, we had 79. But we score ag assaults as if somebody came in here and shot at one of you, God forbid, it would be scored as an ag assault against 6, not 1. So that shows 6 ag assaults. So we've had several where they fired in the house, they haven't hit anyone, but we carry 7 ag assaults. If you look at persons shot, we've had, I think, 17 of those 81 have been people shot. So you've got to kind of parse out the numbers in order to understand if you're making or gaining any ground, and whether or not these shootings are related to something other than gangs. We certainly have seen a significant decrease in gang-related violence. Again, from 2013, where we had almost 3 dozen, to, I think, so far this year, 3. But, it's something that you've always got to be looking at and be sensitive to, and so that's why weekly we go through those numbers.
Those ag assaults, is that a statewide posture for law enforcement?
It's supposed to be, but some agencies that I'm familiar with don't charge everybody that was potentially affected. They just charge the person that was shot. We charge anyone that was in the house, and because if you're in that house, you have a real fear that you could have been shot and killed. And if we make an arrest, we can jolly well believe they would be charged with it. Well, we feel like in order for us to be able to gauge our numbers and how effective we are, we've got to look at those not based on what we can charge if we arrested somebody, but who was placed at risk, and is it comport with the requirements of the Uniform Crime Report, which, as you know, is going to be changing in the next year or so to the NIBRIS, which is the National Incident-Based Reporting, which is going to, kind of be a challenge in analyzing your data, because the data systems are going to change some. So I would, that would be another recommendation if you're looking at data, is that agencies for a couple of years track at both NIBRIS and UCR, so that you can actually see if those trends are changing, either going up or down, because the change in the way that stuff is going to be reported is going to affect that.
Now, you've got a cadre of programs, and my goodness, as we get ready to have a segue coming up with the Southern Christian Leadership Foundation, you talked about civil rights and policing and all the above. I want to commend you, because there's a coalition there. The other part of it is, how many, I would say, gangs would you think were identified. We just left Augusta, and they said they identified at least 100. So
Different gangs?
Different gangs.
What have we got, Jack?
I mean, I would say it depends how you classify it, because we've got multiple East Coast blood sets, multiple West Coast blood sets, or you could call it the Bloods, or you could divide it that way. It really is kind of an amorphous concept. We've seen arrests and prosecutions take out particular sets, and we have fewer gang members, but some of those gang members become a member of another set. So I think it's kind of amorphous. What I would say is, I mean, we have gangster disciples here that are connected to the national infrastructure of gangster disciples. There are multiple blood sets, multiple Crip sets. There are Ghostface gangsters, and then there are some hybrid gangs too. So it kind of depends how you define it. Whether it's a particular set. Sometimes there are multiple factions of a particular set. But I mean, probably a dozen to 20, depending on how you would define it.
And that may be something that is on your recommendation, that there be some kind of firm definition, working definition, so every community is kind of comparing things the same way, because you could have one community saying we have 100 gangs, another community saying we have 3, but really they're talking about the same thing because they're not considering the subsets of those different major organizations. I think our last shooting involved 2 sects from the same gang, kind of.
Right.
So, yeah.
When you talk about prevention and retention, you've got a lot of programs, and one of the things we realize are wraparound services or after-school programs. You talked about, I think, the Handle program.
Handle with Care.
And how we discern and look at those students that might come in to school. They might be homeless, or they might not have food. Food deserts might be a part of it, or they might have had a tragic incident. And for some families that don't have credit cards or have those insurance to get counseling, what's being done about that?
That's a good question. I know that our caseworker, we routinely put people up in hotels. We have either money from United Way or some grants that we've obtained for temporary housing. And so when folks contact us and say, they just show up, we ain't got gas money, we don't have a place to stay, we're sleeping in our car, we can put them up for several days in a motel or hotel based on either the funds that we have or agreements we have with the hotel, and then engage DFACs depending upon the makeup of that unit. The other thing that we do is the Handle with Care is if our officers respond 11 o'clock at night, 3 in the morning, to an incident, and they see school-age children that are there that have been, either witnessed or been affected by this, they find out what school they're at, get their name, and then that night we send an email to the superintendent's office of schools. They notify the teacher so that when that child comes in, and for whatever reason, maybe is in the back of the room laying with its head down, instead of that being handled as a discipline issue, it's handled as an opportunity to intervene so that the kid is disciplined. Something relatively straightforward and simple, but we've not been doing. So I think there are all sorts of opportunities for the police to use their role as kind of the ombudsman to plug people into social services. But it requires those relationships, those partnerships, and then training to the officers so they understand what to look for when they see that, how to get those services to the people. Not that they have to do it directly, but there are some things that they have to do to make sure that it gets on the grease slide to get them there. Mental health court's a good example of that. Our officers know if they're dealing with somebody that they believe is affected by mental illness, and all of our officers are CIT trained. They route that report to community outreach, who then has it vetted through the mental health court board to see if they're eligible for that. So there's not one answer to that. It's a system and a process of integrating partnerships into your business practices so that you can take advantage of those business practices in a way that gets people to the services they need.
Thank you. Any other, and Kit Cummings has just come in to the meeting, one of our committee members. Any other questions? And I'm going to ask, let me say this for the benefit of, we have our state media services here, and we actually film this across the state, so if you get a microphone, if someone can help us, you would speak directly into the microphone so we can make sure we have a clear.
Could I ask, will you all do any kind of editing? Because I'm very Armenia's been very good about, the social media aspect. I mean, if you're really serious about dealing with gangs, you got to take advantage of the technology for that kind of stuff. And if we don't, you do? Okay, if you would please work on that for me, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief Detmore, for what you do. Thank you for being tough on crime and soft on people. Is that right?
Yep, that's it.
Thank you for doing that. And thank you for your collaboration of people that you work with in LaGrange, Georgia. So I have a twofold question. And the question is, I'm going to start at the back of the question. So I heard you talk about teen fusion, teen maze, gang awareness, and your community initiatives. 80% of your community initiatives is with other policemen, is with inside the department. So I wanted to know, when you talk about a database, I think of EMT, which is electronic medical records. When someone goes to the hospital, you have the ability to see what's going on with them, depending on what your purpose is for that information. I also think about a Georgia, sex offender. When you say a database, I'm thinking sex offender, you can't really prevent or intervene, unless you already know that they're going to offend. When you say a gang database, and you say teen fusion and teen maze, I think of young people 12 and 11 and 13 who are being put in a database, making decisions in their younger age, and when they're 21 and 22, they're not able to get a job or employment full-time or even go to school because they have a stigma that says I'm in a database and I'm a gang member. So I wanted to know, what was your formula? How do you determine who goes in that database? How much does it cost? Would it be a lot more cheaper, well not cheaper, but how much does that cost to validate a gang member based on, I think you said like hearsay or not the crime, but based on information that you receive. So that was the question I wanted to ask. And I also want to talk about your officers being a social worker. Is it the same as an officer being a social worker and still being able to do this, to be able to beat the stick? In other words, when you work with children or other people for so long, you have to go right back and put the stick on them. Is that the same as prevention or intervention?
Okay, I'll answer the last question first, because that's easier. We've actually all been doing this kind of work for years. The emphasis is just, when people refer to us as law enforcement. If you look historically at arrest records nationally, arrests nationally and calls for service, it's 10 to 1. Some of it's even less than that. It's historically, police officers have been problem solvers because we get called to everything. We're the only ones open 24/7. So I know school's in session because when I'm going to work in the morning, I hear our officers being dispatched to a house because the mama can't get her 8-year-old out of bed to go to school. I mean, those are the cases that historically we've been called on and we've always done. My position is, we always get those calls, but we got to take advantage of those calls now in a way to mate them up with services that can actually do something other than us just showing up and threatening enforcement. When in this day and age, with the modification of the juvenile code, you don't have a lot of teeth behind what you can do for acts that are delinquent, acts that are status offenses as opposed to delinquent offenses. So being able to respond to those with taking advantage of services, I think allows a more effective response. With regard to the database, and that's why I specifically addressed the concern that any database created has got to have significant accountability attached to it. So we have to have a reason to put somebody in the database. Then we have, and this database is not subject to open records. It's not part of the criminal justice record system. It is just that. It's an intelligence database. All agencies of any size have that now. What you don't have is the ability to review somebody else's potential information based on a name. And so what that database would do is, if during the course of an investigation, say a shooting, somebody says, yeah, such and such was with him, he's a gang member with him. So you would enter that name and see, does anybody know this person through this database? And if you don't have a hit, it would state part and indicate that he was present during the shooting involving a gang member. If whatever time you set, and I can't remember as far as 180 days or 360, but if during that time there was no other information, they drop off. You have to have a purge component. So to address your concerns, it would be a couple of things. One is you have to have a reason to put it in, and anybody accessing that has to have a reason to access it that can be traced back to a case. So that's the protection that you have. And it is no way linked with criminal history. So no employer would ever have the opportunity to review that. That would be something that only a law enforcement agency that had a specific reason for doing it. And it's like any record system, it's going to be a political call, because the decisions that you all make as legislators are, what tools do we give public safety? And if the compelling interest in gang intervention is enforcement of these violent criminal gangs, then something that has to be considered is a way to, just like tracking the fellow that was involved in the homicide up in DeKalb County, we arrest him here. If we had to link him with those shells, that arrest, those victims, the survivors, the family members, would never have that case resolved. And so that's the tension. And that's the challenge for you all. I can tell you what works, I can tell you the safeguards, and then you all have to be satisfied that that's going to be sufficient for your support politically and for the kind of support you would need for your communities to allow that kind of technology.
Any other questions? Chief, let me thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions or comments about the database, but I think that's an excellent idea. It's just a feedback off of what you said and what the district attorney said. Because what we're seeing also in DJJ is that they're swapping gang sets, and to be able to track that statewide would be huge and beneficial throughout the state, because they don't, gang members and criminals, they don't recognize jurisdictional boundaries. So to be able to track that statewide, I think would be an excellent tool for law enforcement on the preventive side and on the enforcement side, because you can also use that information to intervene, to get them to I guess, prevention and denounce their gang affiliation, so to speak, later on down the road. But without that information, we wouldn't be able to track it. So.
Yes, sir. And you made an excellent point, and one that I failed to make, is we've had a number of shootings where the folks have come out of Atlanta because the local gang members they want to be able to deny involvement. So they subcontract that work to a gang member in the metro area who comes down here and does the shooting. So that again is, another frustration that policing deals with, which indicates, in my opinion, why that kind of database would be important for the investigations of those crimes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let me say this, we're going to use...
Thank you. I also wanted to commend you for the work that you all have done here. It's really tremendous. And I have two questions. The first was, where do you think you've seen the most success in the work that you've done? Is it on the prevention side or on the intervention and pulling people out of the gangs?
I don't deal with the cases directly, our investigators and the district attorney once. So I'll talk to the prevention, and I'm going to ask Jack to talk to the intervention. I think probably sensitizing our community, so the education of our community and their willingness to step forward in the different agencies that we have. The education has helped create the partnerships, and compelling need to do something about this, I think, galvanizes those partnerships. The willingness of the school to work with us and support us, not just the public schools, but the private schools when we transition from DARE to LEAD. I don't think it's one thing, I think it's a combination of things. And the relationship, I just can't emphasize, to be able to pick up the phone anytime and call anybody and say, hey, we got a problem, we need some help. We've got a mass email where somebody will say, okay, I've got somebody that's got their act together, they just got their GED, they need a job. And that'll go out to 50 people. And somebody will say, okay, I think I got something for them here. Or I've got somebody that they just got kicked out of their house, they got 3 kids. Is there somebody that, can, anywhere we can help them? The church will say, well, I got money for the utilities. Another one will say, I got money for the down payment, or for the first month's rent. I mean, I don't know how you characterize all that in a couple of words. I can just tell you that if I had one word, it would be partnerships. And then I'll ask Jack.
So one thing I would say is the chairman, I believe, early on mentioned breaking the cycle. And that's when I talk to people about the gang crisis, I think that is what we have to look at. The problem has been so pervasive in this community and communities all over Georgia for so long that it's not something that we're going to be able to arrest our way out of, convict our way out of, imprison our way out of. But it's also been such a problem for so long that so many people have been brainwashed into this violent lifestyle that there are people that we do have to just remove from the community for the community's safety. The cycle, as the chief alluded to, and as I'm sure y'all have heard all over the state, we have people that are in their 20s and 30s warping, brainwashing kids. And we have to remove those bad actors. And then the ones who are leading these gangs and who are already perpetrating violence in the community. And that's one of the first things I think we have to do for the community's safety. And as an assistant DA, once I have someone who, no matter really what the age, if they're putting a gun in someone's face or they're shooting someone, we owe it to the community to, there's only one thing we can do with that. I do think a holistic approach is what's required all over the state to address this issue. I think anecdotally, we've had success on both sides here. Of course, I'm in constant communication with the police department investigators and with the chief. But once they come to us, we have to, when they're perpetrating violence, we have to remove them from the community. We do, though, often have cases where someone who has shown a very strong affiliation, a strong association and commitment, but hasn't yet crossed that line, and then they're charged with something, and then they demonstrate to us that they are rejecting the lifestyle. We've diverted that. We haven't sent them to prison, and we've had some success there. And I think that's what's most important is showing a commitment, getting those who are heading down that path to denounce the lifestyle. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to. Thank you. And I was also wanted to get your thoughts for as a study committee, we'll make some recommendations at the end. And I was, I see the the mental health court, the drug court, I know we have criminal accountability court, all these different courts. And I was wondering if there was something like that that might be helpful for gangs. I heard you say the need for a firm definition of what a gang is, kind of a statewide definition in law, as well as the ability of a really robust system to exchange information. But are there some other things in terms of laws or anything that would be helpful to what you're doing?
You know, and I was talking to this with our solicitor earlier. If you get these youngsters particularly that have affiliated with a gang, and as Jack indicate that, you know, they just feel trapped, there needs to be somewhere you can send them away from here where, you know, they can get their education, some sort of residential treatment that can give them some tools, and then some placement somewhere, particularly, you know, folks that are, you know, 17, 18, that recognize if they go back where they come from, they're going to end up back where they came from. I know just having the transition center here and having folks, trustees from the transition center, or excuse me, trustees from the work camp when we had them. I had two, and one of them asked me if I could get him in the transition center here. He says, I don't want to go back to Atlanta. He said, I know if I go back to Atlanta, I'm going to end up back where I, you know, what got me here. And this is a young man, well, he's 38 now, probably 42 now, but we got 20 years at 18 for kidnapping robbery. And when he asked me, I said, well, what'd you do? And he said, that's pretty bad. And I told him, I said, well, let me see what I can do. And they said, well, he needs to have a job. And he really, I mean, just a great guy. Everybody at PD liked him. So I asked, I said, is there any job we have in the police department that a convicted felon can have that if we change the requirements, and we needed somebody in animal services. So we changed the requirements. The officers got money together for his driver's license, taught him to drive, and he came out of the transition center, and now he's been an employee of ours for 3 or 4 years, a great employee. So I think, you know, having those kind of creative opportunities. The problem with our system is it's very black and white in many areas, and if the people that are in those roles don't get that there's flexibility, it's easy to hide behind the institution and make a bureaucratic decision that, you know, is life-altering to many people. All right, thank you all.
Thank you, Chief. And Chief, I'm going to give you an advanced recruitment invitation on November 15th.
Oh, what?
We're asking everyone to come back for our final that can for our last meeting in Atlanta, which we're going to roundtable to come up with the final conclusions, because LaGrange, Georgia has it. So I want to commend you, the mayor, DA, and council. Y'all have it. I want to thank you so much.
Well, the key is this is not a one-man show. I mean, dozens of folks. What do you know the date of that?
November 15th at the Georgia State Capitol.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect segue for our next presentation from the Southern Resolution Foundation. And Executive Director, Mrs. Bernice Frazier, by ways of Alabama. We want to thank you so much for coming. Would you greet Ms. Bernice Frazier as she comes in Stevens?
Good morning to all of you. I'd like to, first of all, thank Representative Gilliard and the committee for inviting us to this table. We're excited to be here. And I'd also like to give congratulations to Police Chief Dick Marr, who gave a very comprehensive presentation. And we're glad to have law enforcement. All law enforcement is not bad. As my husband, who is a retired law enforcement police chief, is 60-20. 60% of our officers are very good officers, 20 are on the fence, and only 20% are bad. But it's just a fact, as my grandmother used to say, the empty wagon makes the most noise. So they look like they're a majority of the police force, but they really are not. So I like to commend good policing when I see it. Thank you so much again for having us here. First of all, okay. First of all, I'd like to give a little background on SEL Foundation. You can go to that next slide. And what we have is Conflict Reconciliation Project, and it is a quantum leap to peace. Next one. So SEL was formed in 1966 by Harry Belafonte and Sidney Poitier, and it was formed to address programmatic outreach in the civil rights movement. Under their leadership, the organization raised money to assist with bail for arrested youth in Birmingham and other civic disobedient causes for civil and human rights during the 60s in the United States. It should be noted that during this time frame of the early 60s, the SEL Foundation was one of the few 501c3 charities created with the sole purpose of advancing African American causes. And we are proud to note that the foundation works in conjunction with partners and affiliates to affect the lives of all Americans across this country and internationally. As an organization that has demonstrated a record of working within grassroots communities daily, SEL Foundation recognizes the various factors and the challenges of standing in the gap for violence prevention. SEL Foundation's philosophy is quantum responsibility, which is leaping forward quickly. We all know what quantum means. You leap at a quicker pace. And so we leap into our responsibilities, which means individuals are educated, inspired, and empowered to understand true definition of influence, to understand their personal power, and to muster the courage to apply said power to the pursuit of civil and human rights as in the past, so we may have a better future. Our initiatives consist of Hearing Impactful Voices, which is a quarterly talk show, which is aired on local television throughout the country and as a podcast. And it is highlighted and interviewing community leaders, which we feel are the voices with impact. We have Developmental Arts, which enhances writing, performing arts, and painting skills in various expressions. We have a Man Up program, which positively impacts young men by providing the adult support and learning opportunities that promote character development and life-enhancing values. We also have a Sister by Sister program, which provides support for single and first-time teen mothers by partnering them with women that had children at a young age. And this mentoring takes place for the first 2 years of the child's life. Youth empowerment, we encourage community youth to utilize their skills through assisting and giving back to their neighborhoods. Silence is sinful health disparities, and this initiative addresses education, prevention, and testing for various health disparities that are prevalent in our communities of color. Senior Checkup, this initiative partners youth and seniors, building relationships and establishing permanent connections to ensure communication and growth between the generations. And what we have here today to share with you is our Conflict Reconciliation Project. Please note, right here, I'd like to take a moment to say that the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, of which the Foundation is an active partner, states the following. The focus of public health is on the health, safety, and well-being of entire populations. A unique aspect of the field is that it strives to provide the maximum benefit for the largest number of people. And they also emphasize input from diverse sectors, including health, education, social services, justice, policy, and the private sector. Collective action on the part of these stakeholders can help in addressing problems like violence, which is why I'm so excited about your committee and what you're doing here today. The public health approach is a 4-step process that is rooted in the scientific method. It can be applied to violence and other health problems that affect populations. Step 1 is define and monitor the problem. Step 2 is to identify risk and protective factors. Step 3, develop and test prevention strategies. And step 4, assure that this is widespread and the application is adopted. The foundation has incorporated the 4-step approach in our Conflict Reconciliation Project, or CRP. The CRP is a community-based training on conflict resolution skills for teens and young adults. The goal of the project is to combat violence in our communities using nonviolent initiatives and create a curriculum that provides learning opportunities for the immediate participants. The CRP has its basis in the nonviolent principles of Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Youth violence has been defined as the intentional use of physical force or power, threatened or actual, against oneself, another person, or against a group community that either results or has a likelihood of resulting in injury, death, psychological harm, maldevelopment, or deprivation. Some 33,000 violent street gangs, motorcycle gangs, and prison gangs are criminally active in the U.S. today. Many are sophisticated and well organized. All use violence to control neighborhoods and boost their illegal money-making activities, which includes robbery, drug and gun trafficking, prostitution and human trafficking, and fraud. Many gang members continue to commit crimes even after being sent to jail. High-profile school shootings have increased the public's awareness of youth violence, resulting in several school-based violence programs. But there are virtually no programs in operation that target community-based violence. In 2015, Atlanta police announced that they were tracking an estimated 192 gangs, and various surveys have identified more than, at this time, close to 80,000 individual gang members throughout the state of Georgia. And as we all know, that means Georgia is in a crisis. The goal of CRP is justice, a win-win solution rather than a win-lose solution. The nonviolent approach reduces both financial and human costs in managing conflicts and promotes reconciliation. It may be the only approach where a party to a conflict is rewarded for teaching the opponent how to master his or her deterrent. And what do we mean by that? If you all have a question about that, I'll come back and answer that. But nonviolent solutions not only preserve the dignity of conflicting parties, but also elevates the relationship between the opponents to one of cooperation and understanding, in which they jointly implement change and together they celebrate victory. The project introduces skills and motivational necessary for people to pursue peaceful strategies for solving personal and community problems. We also believe this approach is quantum responsibility and necessary if the epidemic of violence is to be eradicated. Nonviolence is often mistaken for being simply the absence or opposite of violence. It is rather a systematic framework of both conceptual principles and pragmatic strategies to reduce violence and promote positive peace at the community, national, and global levels. Nonviolence is not new. Its efficiency has been proven historically across many situations in many different cultures. And as the world moves through this new century, nonviolence is increasingly being recognized as the only real option for stemming the tide of violence. Our approach does not depend on major material or technology instruments, but utilizes skills and methodologies. The curriculum trains in the utilization of the Reconciliation Project of Nonviolence as espoused by many leaders in the nonviolence philosophy that was often used to train community leadership in nonviolence conflict reconciliation during the 60s. The training course is designed to explore how these philosophies have been used to prevent violence and identify violent-prone situations. The course identifies personal attitudes toward different groups and assists in determining what personal changes are necessary. The course focuses on violence prevention and violent-prone situations using the philosophy of conflict reconciliation. This course has been used in Atlanta, and Atlanta is the largest city within Georgia because we've used it all over the country. That can relate to what you're doing, where 1,200 youth were trained in 2007. That program did not continue because the federal funding for it was dried up, and then we had a new mayor come in, because this was under Shirley Franklin, and so different things occurred. So that particular program did not go forward. There will always be conflict, but all conflict need not be violent. In most societies, in most situations, people can advance their influence through nonviolent means. The historical background is important to the approach because it provides the framework for interpreting the context for various theories and actions. If one can understand the organic nature of the nonviolence reconciliation theory, practice, and process, one can appreciate the dynamic evolutionary continuum to which one can contribute, interpret, and be involved. If one can appreciate the different kinds of conflict in our society, the role that conflict plays in the life of an individual, a group, or larger society, how that conflict can be managed, and the importance of conflict bringing about change, then what might be ordinarily considered a totally negative experience can be transformed into positive outcomes. The perceptions, interpretation, and persuasion of the leadership determine the role conflict may play in a situation and its positive or negative consequences. In physically threatening situations, it could mean considering options before using violence. In a dispute between family members, it could mean finding time to discuss the issue when the anger has subsided. In interactions with children, it could mean showing them how to solve problems in a step-by-step way. In dealing with highly volatile community conflicts, it could mean seeking win-win solutions in which everyone's needs and interests are identified and respected. Nonviolence has a long history nationally and internationally of creating positive social change, peace building, and elevating the quality of human interaction. Supporters of nonviolence do not always agree on the methodology, the strategies, or stations in which it can be employed. All supporters of nonviolence, however, will agree that society could be enriched by preventing and reducing violence, and by creating more positive ways to resolve conflict and support reconciliation. It is an effective methodology and way of life for building long-term peace and beloved communities. SEL Foundation looks forward to being a major part in reducing gang violence in the state of Georgia, and we thank Representative Carl Gilliard for inviting us to the table. Now let's put our strengths together and get to work on saving our youth for tomorrow. Thank you very much, and I'm here now for any questions. I'd also like to take this opportunity to introduce my staff that traveled with me today, and Mr. Daryl Roth, who is our National Program Director, and Ms. Katina Stevens, which many of you already know, is our Regional Coordinator for the South Atlantic area, which includes the states of Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina.
Well, let me go on record and say that the Southern Christian Leadership Foundation has been the curator of conflict reconciliation. Those programs, a lot of people across the nation always say we want to do conflict resolution, but not know how to do it. And so Mrs. Frazier has traveled across the nation teaching those kingdom principles. In 2019, we got a problem, we're in trouble. How do we go backwards to regroup and pull our young people? I think the chief alluded to it about the lifestyles that they're running into. And gangs now, the cancer has grown. And it seems that now we're reacting. So what do we do? What's our first step to try to recruit those young people?
Well, I think one of the things we have to do is identify where they are. Part of the reconciliation that we teach, and which is, of course, as you know, Carl, is one of Dr. King's favorite processes, is that you put yourself in that person's place. You put yourself in your opponent's place, and then you can see from their point of view. It does not mean that they're right, but you may be able to understand why they're coming from that venue. Second of all, oftentimes our youth are looking for love and attention and something to belong to. And we've lost a lot of things that they feel they can belong to, that they're part of a family. We never know what a child is being involved in. I've worked with children and have learned astounding things. I had one group of young ladies I was working with, and we had a segment where they could say anything to me and it would not go any further. So I had a young lady came in to me and she said, Mrs. Frazier, guess what happened to me this weekend? Guess what I did this weekend? And so I'm thinking maybe she's going to tell me she went and robbed somebody or she stole something. Or she says, I was at home and I opened up the door and my mother and my aunt was having an orgy in the living room. So at first I thought, maybe she doesn't know what an orgy is. I said, well, maybe they weren't having an orgy. I said, you know what an orgy is? And she went on to graphically demonstrate or tell me what was going on. So, and then her next statement was, but I don't care because my mother ain't nothing but a bee anyway. So when you encounter that child who has that type of relationship going on in her home, you can't expect her to come to you and say, Mrs. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so, because they don't respect what's going on at home. So you have to identify that first. Once children understand that you really care about them, that's the one thing that I've learned. If they really truly believe that you care about them, they're going to open up to you. And a lot of them don't want to be where they are, but they feel that's the only alternative that they have. The other thing is people don't understand, a lot of children don't know how to resolve conflict. They go to the extreme immediately. They don't work through the process. They don't want to talk about it. You hit me, you bumped into me, I'm going to shoot you. There's been several cases just over this weekend, not just with youth now, because they're learning from their adults that we see. They interpret and repeat what they see adults do. So you had road rage that this gentleman bumped a person's car, and she got out and was asking him about it, and he said, I'll shoot you, B, and he proceeded to do that, and he killed her. And all she was doing was teaching her son, 17 years old, how to drive a car. So he immediately escalated to the highest level instead of saying, I'm sorry, what's going on? I didn't mean to pull out, or I'm trying to teach my son how to drive. Here's my insurance. You know, things that you would sit down and talk through don't get to that level anymore. So the only way I can resolve it and keep my pride intact is to escalate to the 10th degree. And they don't really value human life. Human life is not valued as it was many years ago because they're desensitized to violence. So we have to work through that process. And I know that's a long answer to your question. But there are steps and processes that we go through to work with them. And it's almost like starting in kindergarten and raising them through that process of nonviolence and conflict.
I would say that one thing that amazes me, and I saw the parables of the statements of the foundation based on Kingian principles, and you talked about nonviolence to violence. And with all the casualty, and I'll just say this on the record, of all of us that appreciate the celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., it's amazing that we've left this thing called nonviolence out of the equation. And once a year, we would ratify the man, but not focus on the methodology. And so we've got to find a way to get what you just said about nonviolence, because I'm going back to what the chief said, that now it becomes a way of life that we've got accustomed to. And when we've been doing a lot of these meetings, they've talked about trauma from our young people, because here again, the average young person or the family doesn't have a credit card for counseling. So when that young person has a murder, you know, recently in Savannah, Georgia, we had something very tragic. We had a young man that was involved in an accident in Bibb County running away, and 5 people were taken out. And so those young people know that young person in that car. Miss Beverly Trotter and I know one of the other victims was an innocent young lady in the car. But how do we get back to those Kenyan principles for nonviolence? We've got to find a way to teach those the methodology. How do we get that across the state? I know you've been trying to focus on going into the law enforcement, the schools, all the above. How was your success with the state of Georgia? Have they been receptive?
Well, with this, not on the state level, but in the city of Atlanta and the city of Macon, we were able to work with the court system and law enforcement and the school systems. And what we did was, first of all, identify young people that was just on the borderline, wasn't really in trouble, but could be pulled either way. And so the first thing is we went and met them where they were. And then they were encouraged to participate in this as an alternative to detention, an alternative to any time that they would serve. And so when they came, they was expecting something more on a disciplinary police-style situation. And then we had it set up like a little homecoming. We had food for them, and we had music, and we talked to them and made them feel comfortable at first, and then we went through the Kenyan theory and in our philosophy for training. And one of the things we have to remember that the civil rights movement was so successful with nonviolence because we trained individuals how to stand up to violence. So it wasn't easy. You can't walk out of here. I don't think anybody sitting in this room right now say we'll walk outside and we'll let 50 people spit on us and throw stuff at us and beat us over the head, and we're just going to stand there and say, okay, that's okay that you did that. So there's a mechanism and a training that goes in to be able to do that. And it's not that you're succumbing to violence and that you're so weak that you're not going to hit back. And that's one of the things we have to emphasize. We emphasize the fact that it takes more strength and more character not to retaliate, not to hit back at that person that's attacking you than it does for you to attack them. It's very easy to be egged on by your group and attack somebody. It takes strength to stand up and resolve that I'm not going to do that. And let me ask you how did you feel when you're doing it? Why are you doing this? And a lot of times your opponent will tell you they don't know. I don't know why I'm doing it. So let's talk about it. What are you angry at? What are you angry at? First of all. And a lot of times what they're angry at has nothing to do with you. It could be their home, it could be that they haven't had any food, it could be they don't have those designer shoes that you have on, it could be that I'm the mother of the house and I'm only 7. There's a lot of things that's going on that we have to identify and then work through and teach them how to make decisions on conflict, because there's always conflict. And a world without conflict would not be able to succeed. So you have good conflict and you have bad conflict. Okay, so what we have to do is work on identifying what good conflict is, which is decision making, where you have other opinions coming in and you sit down and debate issues. That's a conflict on how we grow. The conflict that results in immediate violence is the one that we're trying to address.
Thank you. Okay.
I want to thank you for what you do. Dr. King started influencing me about at the age of 25, about 30 years ago. And I didn't know he was going to become the foundation of my work, him and Gandhi and this conflict reconciliation. But we, about 10 years ago, started taking nonviolent principles into maximum security prisons and doing programming with rival gangs and with men of influence, and then teaching them how to resolve conflict so that they can bring about a better time, so they can do better time. And we had dramatic results. Well, recently we launched the program in the county level in county jails. It's incentive-based. So like in Cobb County Jail, we got some of the most influential guys in the toughest block, the maximum security, where they're having like gang violence. We just, through incentive, we helped them learn how to work together so they could get things that they wanted, which was good. Like, for instance, they earned the right to watch NFL football on the weekends. That was a big deal. So when there was potential conflict, they had a motivation, something they were trying to protect. And then we ramped it up and we're trying to give them, more, and so that's working very well. But we just launched in Selma, Alabama. And so I want to let you know that. And one of the cool things that's developing there is those 12 men inside there, it's a small jail, and the conditions are, you would not believe the conditions if you've never seen that. I've been in a lot of third world prisons. It's like third world.
Oh, really?
And a lot of those men have been in there for years. They're waiting on a trial. They don't even have a court case. They don't even know what's going on. So at the right time, there's going to be some light shed on that. But now these brothers in there have influence on the streets. They are the streets, and we chose different neighborhoods represented, and they're learning to work together, which was a little bit, it was out of the box, because you only usually put those brothers in the same room. But most of them have responded by saying, hey, nobody ever asked us to help. What's in it for me? And I think we've got to, with these kids, we've got to figure out how to give them value. Like the chief before said that they took that brother and they gave him a job. I mean, they gave him something better than the street.
Right.
Otherwise, it's not even Stevens. We're asking these kids to get out of something that's working for them on some level, and we're not necessarily providing anything. So I guess a long way around the horn, thank you for your work in Alabama. I'd love to see if we can partner. But are you open to, or are you partnering with organizations that are doing work in the jails? Because if we've got 71,000, 80,000 gang members in the state of Georgia, I think probably a third of them are locked up. And so that is a captive audience that we have an opportunity for those that want it, the programs, start to give them value. But I'm not sure if there's I think partnership is the big word that I hear at these beautiful meetings. We got to work together to we think. But is there anything on the radar for you like that?
Oh, yes, we work in that, and also we work across the country. We're not just in Alabama.
Oh, I know. Yes, ma'am. Yes,
okay. So, but yes, we do work with law enforcement to go in with that. In fact, what I consider one of my most successful trainings was international. We went down into Brazil and went into the prisons there. So that's why I know this third world prison, it's awful.
Yes.
So we had one of the highest ranked gang leaders. I think he was like under Escobar. That's how high he was. And we went in and did training with him. And it was at a time where on Mother's Day, they had the most murders in the country. More people were killed on Mother's Day than any day of the year. And the reason why was, on that day, if you said anything about my mother, then I killed you. So he went through the Kingdom training, and he was so changed by that he put he's in prison. He put an order out that everybody was to wear white T-shirts on Mother's Day. And that was a truce, like a white flag. That was a truce, and nobody could kill anybody on that day. And there were no murders on that day for Mother's Day. We brought that young man to the United States. He was Hispanic. We brought him to the United States and went into Atlanta, and he went and spoke to the gang members in Atlanta in the Latino community. And he was very, very successful. And when we went back, he got out of prison and he got a job as being the city, his hometown. He was the city gang authority, like the police chief was saying. He was the expert, and he helped diffuse problems and situations for gangs. And their motive was dealing with the drugs situation because that was their main income. So they had to help come up with different incomes, growing different types of crops that did not necessarily mean the coca plant. And so those are the things that we have done internationally, and then nationally we have gone into several prisons in Ohio, in Florida, and we were beginning to work in Savannah through Representative Gilliard, and some bumps have come up, but we're going to work through that. We were working with the first black police chief that was down there, because we worked with him and even get an appointed police chief. So to answer your question, yes, we are, and we're excited about that. And we're trying to partner with some of the reentry programs.
Yes, ma'am.
That have to deal with that. And a lot of it has to do with, even on a health level, when we instituted, young men are tested, for instance, for venereal diseases when they go into prison. But when they're coming out of prison, they're not tested. And so we're trying to implement that where they are tested coming out, because that has a big impact on what they do in their lives. The women that they become involved in, their situations on, if I do have a disease, I'm not telling anybody, so it gets progressively worse rather than getting treatment for it. And so when I'm concentrating on those type of things, the last thing I'm thinking about is whether I'm going to be non-violent and have a conversation with you to work out, because I'm already pissed off.
Right.
So all of those multi-levels are things that we need to work on, and I look forward to collaborating with you. I just was in Selma last weekend, so I have a good relationship down there, so I hope to get into working with you on that.
And we're plugged in Ohio and Michigan and up in that area too. So a lot of the juvenile prisons up there, we've got roots in. So we've got
Good. So what particular cities in Ohio?
well, they have the three main juvenile prisons are Cuyahoga, Circleville, and the third one I can't remember.
It's north.
Yeah, so they've got three, and this is the actual, they've got juvenile life sentences going on in there. And we've seen a huge reduction in seclusion hours, because when they fight this into the hole, when they go to the hole, mental health is exacerbated. Now all of a sudden they're going to hit the street, and they're not ready. And so this dramatically increases the seclusion hours, but also just, it teaches them that, hey, if I do good things come to me. And so we don't start by trying to get them to leave their family.
Right.
We start by saying, hey, can you use your influence to bring down the violence? And now all of a sudden maybe we can talk and we can start getting some programs. So I'd like to see more programs on the streets and in the prison engaging the ones that have the most power. When we saw the 13s and the 18s in El Salvador, they cut the murder rate in half in a day because the two kingpins decided it was going to be a halt. So I mean, we have that kind of influence in LaGrange. They're brothers on the street. They have that kind of pull. We just got to give them a reason.
Exactly. I like to say we have a lot of Fortune 500 leaders. You have young men that can run a Fortune 500 company with the type of influence and intelligence that they have.
Yes.
A lot of what they have in their head is not written down on a piece of paper. They run a whole organization.
Right.
So we can show them the positive side of that. I think it will help not only them, but it's going to help society as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Ms. Bernice Frazier, for STL being a sphere of influence for a lot of years. We appreciate that, and we do value that. My question today, well, I have a statement, I also have a question. Our children are in a crisis, and that crisis, our children are emotionally unstable, and half of that is because of their conditions, the conditions that they live in, the conditions that they decide, their conditions as a whole. I heard you talk about a public health issue and compare that to violence. So I'm in agreement with that, because when I think of a public health issue, I think about prevention, healing, treatment, rehab, hospice, whatever needs to happen to pull that person out of the illness that they're in. So with that being said, violence does begets violence. I don't think that locking kids up or always throwing a stick at the kids is the answer. I do believe that there are things that works, but unfortunately there's no funding for those things. The things that work don't get funded, period. That's just how it's set up. And those things that do work, that don't work, sometimes get the funding. And sometimes that marriage never happens because we don't see the value in those people that look like the children that we're trying to help. So with me saying all that, I wanted to know, in your opinion, what would make SCL not more unique, but more strengthen SCL, where they can be more effective in other areas, like partnering with the police department, partnering with the DA's office, because those particular municipalities only partner with themselves. They have the DA removing the tattoo, they have the police removing the tattoo, they have the policemen doing everything. They don't really necessarily partner with those grassroots organizations, and those are the ones who are not a part of that meal ticket. So what needs to happen to make sure, how can we help be a voice for grassroots organizations like yourself that work to be able to be more supportive? That's not what I know, I'm just curious.
Well, the thing that works for us, and I'll use Atlanta because it's a very large municipality, but the thing that worked with us in there was that we had the support of the mayor. And so when the mayor sided with us, then we went and did a presentation to the court system. The judges bought in, especially the judges in the juvenile court, bought into that because they have funding for what they call anger management. But their anger management was not working. So they diverted those funds to the SEL Foundation, which they could say they're helping them control their anger, and it was much more successful. So if we can have the buy-in and the support of the elected officials, the court system, and the prosecutors on that level, that will help greatly. And then one of the things I like to say is that there's a lot of things we don't need to invent the wheel, reinvent the wheel. If there's something working, then let us all get together and say, let's support this aspect of that for this to work. And if you're dealing with food deserts, then we're going to support you on food deserts, because together we're dealing with the anger, you're going to deal with the food, you're going to deal with the emotional system on this side, you're going to deal with the fact that their parents may not have any money or that they need a job. So instead of us, everybody trying to do everything, let's just pull together and have the pie, and you do your expertise and we'll come out on top. So that's, I hope that answered your question in some aspect. And that's why I'm so pleased with this committee, because this is what you can recommend. You can put together the perfect sphere to ask for funding or support in different ways, and then identify, we have a person that we're going to plug in, and this is what they're going to do. And I have a person over here that plugs in. Because what happens, especially when you're going after funding, they turn us into competitors.
Right.
We're fighting each other,
Right.
trying to make sure we get a little piece of the pie. And so we modify things, we change things, we cut people out, we don't share, and then we end up right where we were when we started. So, just like my brother sitting right here, now he has a program that he says is already in the prison. I'm not going to undercut him. I'm going to go to him and say, okay, this is the part I can do. What can I do to get in on what you're doing so we can still address the same things? I don't have to undercut him in order for me to have a success in reaching some of the people that I want to reach.
Well, this is the unbiased committee for Georgia. And one thing you've hit on the head, and that's why I'm glad that we have Commissioner Crittenden and Commissioner Oliver, and I know our superintendent of schools, Richard Woods, is not here. But one of the things is that those that can do the services are not being brought into the picture. And so this is a great opportunity. I know Commissioner was talking about the decrease in funding. This is an opportunity that we as legislators, I take the blame, can recommend that we've got to have some funding that's going to be wraparound services and programs that are working, such as yours, kid, that can do the work. That can, I'm a legislator, and to this day, after my third term, there are people that still don't know that I'm the CEO of Feed the Hungry in 12 cities. But they'll talk about poverty, food deserts, and I'm sitting up here saying, hey, remember me? So the key thing, and I want to commend you and ask you, I know that the foundation has been instrumental in being a part of our committee and helping us as a support, to come back and be with us as we finalize those recommendations that we go forth on December 1st. And I'm just believing that we can get some viable recommendations. We've had lots of different resources, but you hit it on the head when you vividly and just told the story about that young lady and about that family and what they see and the respect that has been lost. We've got to find some way to infiltrate the schools, the communities, and all the above. And I think the foundation will be a very good entity to do so.
Well, we thank you very much, and I'm going to let you know up front now, on November the 15th, 16th, and 17th, we're going to be in in South Carolina because we're sponsoring a human rights conference. And we have individuals that's submitting abstracts from all over the world, and we won't be able to be in Atlanta physically. But anything you need from us, you just let us know, and of course contact Ms. Katina, and we'll get anything to you, any presentations that we have to have, any papers that you need, and then we can come in to support you right after that. But the 15th, 16th, 17th, because I was going to invite you all to the human rights conference that we're having, but I think this is much more important for you to be a part of, and we will be, you have our support completely and totally. You just physically would not be able to be here on that particular day.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much for your time, and we appreciate you, sir. It's a great segue again for the, I call him the son of LaGrange. There's only one other person besides Herschel Walker that still looks the same as he did when he played football. But Tyrone Poole, I had a chance to meet him at the Capitol, and we brought him to Savannah, Georgia. We put him to work, and he has some very valuable programs that his foundation has personally exhausted funding and taken some personal financial commitments to do himself. And he is right here in LaGrange, and I understand today he's going to be coming back to one of his former high schools. So Mr. Poole, I want to welcome you and thank you for your service to this country, and hopefully you'll be able to help us out with some great recommendations. And while he's setting up, I want to thank our speaker for allowing us to put this committee together, and once again encourage everyone on November 15th to mark your calendars. What we're going to try to do in our final committee, we're inviting presidents of organizations from all over the state, CEOs of institutions like the YMCA, the Boys Clubs, 100 Black Men, fraternities, sororities, pastors, everyone that is in a leadership position, the NAACP, the Urban League, everybody, the Lions Club, everyone that will come to be a part of this last dialogue, where we're going to try to really get a comprehensive recommendation of legislation and financial recommendations on behalf of this committee. So thank you so much. We want to make sure that you get that information. And to this great college that's given us the hospitality on today, we want to thank you so much. It's a beautiful institution. Let's give them a big hand. Thank you. Giving us the opportunity to be here.
All right. Thank you guys for the opportunity to be here. A lot of great information, and again, LaGrange being my hometown. Grew up Hampton Road, Edgewood. You know, LaGrange kind of like joking a little bit, but it's serious. We got 3 high schools. when I was here, they only had 2. I'm like, I don't know if the population has gone up to 100,000, but I think it's still around 50,000. But they got 3 high schools. But it used to be LaGrange High School and True High School. So if I was living in LaGrange right now on Edgewood, I would be going to Callaway. But that's a football story I was about to get into. How many football fans we got in here? Any Patriots fans? Patriots fans? Patriots?
Number 11.
All right.
We got Patriots fans.
No Patriots fans?
No.
I know there are no Falcon fans in here. But again, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. As I was sitting and thanking Representative Gilliard, even from the first time when I presented myself to the members at the state capitol, he got behind me, came up to me, and said he believed in what I was doing. And I believe that no child comes into this world, born into this world, saying that I want to be in a gang. I don't think nobody does that. I don't think I was born saying I wanted to win 2 Super Bowls, but I kind of fell into it. But I believe that family is the foundation. Family is the foundation. I believe if we fix the family, we fix all the other problems that we see existing. As I was sitting at the table, I was doing a diagram. Diagram in math, when they say you break down a number, say you break down 80 down to its lowest possible denomination. I started with 80, and then I went 40, 40, 20, 20, 10, 10, 10, 10, 5, 5, 5, all the way like that. And the number that was the foundation was the 80. So you broke it down. So the family, to me, is the foundation. You break it down. You break it down. Most families are having problems. The kids are having problems because I believe the head is missing. The head is missing. The father. And even if the mother and father are not together, I do believe the head has a very important voice. And when we think about gangs, that's pretty much what kids, like I said, no one is born wanting to be in a gang. But somewhere or another, in their youthful years, that voice is lost. And they pick up and receive another voice. And they get talked into doing things. But if you have a stern voice, I know coming up, when I was coming up, my dad was a stern voice. I used to tell the teacher, well, we're going to call your parents. I'd be like, no, I do whatever you want me to do. Just don't call my dad, My dad would come up and show up on campus and drag me out. And the teacher said, okay, they go back to doing class. And I come back in, sit down like a little angel. But that voice is missing. And that's why I believe the head is very important. You go back and look at the Bible, Adam and Eve. When Eve ate of the fruit, nothing happened. But then as soon as she gave it to Adam, the Bible says immediately. So again, that doesn't take anything from the woman. There's a lot of women that are doing what they have to do to raise their children. But myself being a father, I just believe that voice needs to be talked to. Just another introduction about myself. Born and raised here in LaGrange, Georgia. Attended Fort Valley State University. First round draft pick, 22nd pick, Carolina Panthers, 1995. Started 13 out of my 14 years in NFL, 2 Super Bowl championships with the New England Patriots. I'm an author, motivational speaker, inventor, blah, 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 blah. But sports analyst. I do SIAC. And again, it's not all about me. I really don't like reading stuff about me, but hey, I got to do it, but praise be God. But also the most important thing that I really like is the creator of the Ultimate Success Life Skills Seminars. I definitely believe to whom much is given, much is required. Tower Pool 30 Foundations is another one of my heart things. This is where the actual center, when we talk about football, this is the center of my offense. This is where the play starts right here. This is my center. The focus of the foundation is the success and happiness of like families. Just teaching crucial life skills, ultimate success life skills seminars, catering to every age. It's not just for kids, it's for all of us, because I feel like we're all pottery. And just sometimes, like in pottery, you know, if it dries, you know, that clay dries, and it dries crooked, well, you can't use it like you want to use it, but you can find something to pour it. You know, maybe see some flowers in it and put it in the corner, but it still serves a purpose. So I believe that everyone serves a purpose, regardless of your age. I do believe old dogs can be taught new tricks. They not be taught the tricks that you want them to be taught, but they can be taught new tricks and beautified. Strengthening the relationships within the family. Another thing the foundation tries to do. Exposing those who do not have strong family ties, you know, to the power of family and love. But today, we're not here, so to speak, to talk about my foundation, to talk about all my accomplishments. We're here to talk about, to discuss what we can do about youth gang problems in Georgia, which I believe starts with the parents. Like that's the foundation. You fix the house, you fix everything else. The lack of life skills with the parents. So many kids, again, being brought up, you know, grandmother used to be, you know, 60, 65, 70. Now grandmother 35 years old. You know, she tried to get her thing on. So now you got kids raising kids. And television, social media raising kids. The dissolution of the family unit is, you know, being diluted day by day by day. But life skills training is required I believe life skills training is required to combat all these issues. Combating gang violence in Georgia. We know statistically, I've received some of these statistics, we've all seen them. There are approximately 71,000 gang members in Georgia. You know, gang activities exist all over the county of Georgia. Most crimes are gang related, particularly violent crimes. The best of those that prevent youth from entering the system from the onset. The best programs, like Representative Carl Gilliard said, you know, the best ones don't really get financially supplied. But like, you know, we all know that that's a system behind that. The best programs are those that prevent youth from entering the system from the onset. There's another statistic. Last year in Los Angeles, gang-related homicide was down 20%. So you know they try to do something correct. Authorities cite their increased funding of gang prevention programs, which we've heard the chief of police say that what they're doing here in LaGrange, particularly life skill programs. That's what my foundation is about, for the decrease of homicides. So. Why do youth join gangs? Again, my first belief is the missing of the head. The head. You got the head, you got the body. The body does what the head tells it. And if there's no head, or sometimes you have two heads, that's a monster, but you should have one firm head. But identifying and recognizing is one. Protection, fellowship, brotherhood. These are reasons why youth join gangs. Intimidation, criminal activity, you know, for profit gain. So the ultimate success life skills, let's talk about the seminar. It's based off of the lessons conveyed in my best-selling book, The Ultimate Success in the Game of Life. And I tell people, you know, the ultimate success, you read the title of the thing, it's going to talk about fancy cars, big houses, trips to the French Riviera. No, that's not my definition of ultimate success. Ultimate success, my definition is when you overcome obstacles and situations that try to hinder you from achieving your goal. I tell people, when you look at a team that celebrates, if an offense scores, you see them celebrating, that's ultimate success, but that's not why they're celebrating. They're celebrating because there were 11 other guys called defenders that were trying to stop them from achieving that success. When we hold on that Super Bowl trophy, it's not about the trophy. It's about the 16 games that we played that no one, teams tried to stop us, but no one could stop us. And then 3 games into the playoffs where there were teams that tried to stop us and finally the Super Bowl. So that's why we hold the trophy up, but that's not why we celebrate the trophy. It's the overcoming of obstacles and situations that try to keep us from achieving our ultimate goal. And I do believe vision. You can give the kids vision. But they can't be what they don't see in the house. Seminars include 4 crucial elements. Presentations, like what I'm doing now, talking, what we're doing now, getting the people, kids, parents, information, study guides. I have a study guide that is generic, but is very particular to each individual that reads it. Again, just like the Word of God, we can read John 3:16, and each one of us in here come out with something totally different in what it means to us. So it's all about strategizing and finding what is the principle of life and what works. 2 plus 2 is 4 here in America, just like it's 4 over in the United Kingdom or wherever. It's a principle. Interactive skits. This is one that I brought into the program based off of my years in NFL. And believe it or not, they do try to teach us in the NFL how to act civilized. But again, we all know we are human beings, we have a free will, and we're going to do what we do. Especially if you're paying a guy $10 million, pretty much kind of hard to tell him, what not to do. But I got the interactive skills, the interactive skits. And one that I really particularly remember that really stood out to me, the NFLPA, they brought some actors in, and this is when I'm with the Patriots, and the guys come in and they interacted, they presented us with a scene. The guy was at the club with his a girlfriend, and so the guy leaves to go do whatever, and so the actor walks off like he's going somewhere. So another guy comes up and starts talking to his girl, and so now the guy comes back. So right before the crucial part of the decision is made by the guy returning, the moderator will say freeze, and then he would turn to us sitting in the seats, and he would say, raise your hand if you know what you would do in this scene. And believe it or not, there are guys that said that, he would be whatever they're going to do to him. And again, it's all about interactive skits that I show these kids. I put them in situations, and I say freeze. And I have actors. Some are volunteer. Sometimes we pull kids from the actual attendance. And actually, I did one here, a seminar here at LaGrange. And one kid who had never been exposed. Again, it's about exposure. He liked acting so much that he said, how can I get involved? So when I do programs, I try to involve activities that they probably would not see. But, it gives them opportunity. But that's where I kind of got the interactive skits from my days in NFL. I just thought visualization stimulates the brain more than sometimes audio. So when you see things, it tends to stick with you longer. Fitness breaks. The program also involves fitness. Fitness is being taken out of schools. It's being taken out of everywhere. So now you put a lot of pressure not only on your body, but your mind. It's like, to me, fitness is one of my key components as far as pressure release. Fitness and singing motivational songs. It stimulates me. It allows me to raise that pot up and let that steam off so I can put the pot back on to cook them collard greens. So, so you got to release that pressure at times. State Representative Gilliard, again, a very supportive person. State Representative Bob Tremble, who is representative in this area, Troup County and the surrounding areas. Shay, who is in Canada, the Disability Channel. I've gone to Canada and done some things there. What do you what do the participants learn? Not only from the book, but the program. 12 dynamic principles that I share in the Ultimate Success and Life Skills Seminar. Choosing the right pattern. Believe it or not, a lot of us don't know how to choose the right pattern. You know, if you ask someone, or ask any of us in here right now, if I had you to come right here to the mic, to this table, and I said, okay, what principles are you following? Most of us just named something, but we don't know why we follow it. So choosing the right pattern to follow. And I say this again, I use my daughter as an example. My daughter, if she was in here, and she would tell you the same thing. My son is 12, about 13. My daughter is 19. She's a sophomore in college. My 13-year-old son, he's in the 8th grade and playing football for the first time. Tackle football. So I'm not afraid of tackle football. He wants to play, I'll let him play. But my daughter, if you ask her, I told her this when she was young. I said, tell me 5 things about you. Who are you? Who are you? And I believe if we know who we are, then we know what we're not, and we won't get caught up in bad situations. But I asked her 5 things. At first, she was hesitant, really didn't know. But after she, again, talked about the head, whether it's the mother and father together working, or it's the father, but there was a head that was giving life to the body, which was my daughter. So now, you know, praise God, she's, you know, having a successful college career in track and field, and got scholarship in track and field. So all that hard work, I push her daily, but she's doing her thing. But also, I won't go through all these. You see it on the screen. But surround yourself with people who are on the same level or above. I can't stress that one enough. You know, you got to find your equal. You got to find your equal. I think so many times we lower our standards, again, because we don't know who we are. But if you know who you are, then you're going to find people on your level or above. I've never seen, in my career playing sports, I've never seen a top athlete train with somebody who didn't like working out. They always train with somebody who was on their level or pushed them. That's how you get better. Gassed up for your journey. Raising your bar, learning every day. Defeat, I love this one too. Defeat is a permitted response. I repeat that again. Defeat is a permitted response. No matter what happens, defeat may be waiting on the outside of that door of life, but it cannot come in until I let it in. So it is permitted. So if you don't permit it, it can't come in. But you got to talk that. You got to talk that. That's what my program tries to do. Success or failure doesn't just happen. Learn to depend on yourself. I really encourage the youth, because self-esteem, you know, is very low in some people. That's why some of them probably go to gangs, because they're trying to find that fulfillment. Never settle for less than the best. Stay focused and never ever give up. The program I did here was for the LaGrange Housing Authority. The city of LaGrange and the LaGrange Housing Authority made a joint contribution to the Untitled Foundation. Again, just like Representative Gilliard said, you know, all these great programs need to be funded. You know, I can't do it all by myself. I need help. And a lot of it, I funded myself. But you do better when you have partners. It's like the old saying. They say, you know, one finger, I can do things without one finger, but if I get all my fingers and put them together, then I can strike a mighty blow. So I can do as much as I can by myself, but it takes partners. Didn't win no Super Bowl by myself. It took 53 other guys, everybody doing their job. But the seminar was catered to about 60 of junior high age residents. Feedback was incredible, very positive. With one housing authority, they came out and checked everything out as the program was going, but they said that the program was so good, they enjoyed it, that the parents, it should be given to the parents. That's how good it was. Youth issues. Youth issues begin with parent issues. Again, I believe it starts in the family. How can Ultimate Success Life Skills Seminar enhance the results of social services programs? Talk about that. Here's a quote from Maya Angelou. I think it's very profound. If you don't like something, you change it. If you can't change it, then you change your attitude about it. reform the mind, refuel the mind, and you can understand and receive ultimate success. Enhancing the success of state-assisted programs. Again, the foundation, Tyrone Poole 38 Foundation, I believe it is like a chameleon. It's like water. It takes the shape of any container. It blends in with anybody. If you're a human being, then the program will help you. Whether you're the have or the have-not, or you are a winner, or I don't like using the word loser. I say you're either winning or you learning. You never lose. So that's not even in my vocabulary. I'm either winning or I'm learning. If I didn't win, then there must be something else I got to learn. But winning is for me. State-assisted programs. You can learn, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Man, that is so true. But at least my daughter's getting it. She's 19. But my son, 13, man, he still look at me like, oh man, you don't know what you're talking about. But still, I'm trying to get that horse to drink that water. So one day he gonna drink it. Hopefully it's his sister. But when people lack the basic life skills, you can offer them assistance, but they don't know how to take advantage of it. They're not gonna take advantage of it. Using life skills programs in conjunction with state-assisted programs can significantly increase their success rate. Enhancing job programs with life skills. Having the physical and mental ability to do a job is insufficient. An individual will soon lose that job if he or she doesn't understand the importance of the basics. Enhancing housing programs with life skills. If an individual was not raised to understand the importance of taking care of his or her property, he or she often lacks the skills to do that. So he or she simply may not recognize that the way a person cares for his or her home. So it reflects the amount of pride a person has when you actually value something. It impacts the value of the neighborhood. Sometimes, I drive, I think about how I came up, and I look at where I live now. Praise God. When I was growing up, I'm like, trash. Even when I was young, I'd be walking down the street and I finished eating a candy bar or ice cream truck come running by, you get the ice cream, and you finish with the wrap, you throw it on the ground, But again, as I became exposed to higher and greater opportunities, I saw that, hey, what I was doing wasn't the way I was supposed to do it. So again, it's being exposed. It's being exposed. So now, I even take my buggy. I take my buggy when I'm in the grocery store. I come out, take my groceries out. It's a true story. I don't just look around to see who ain't looking. I push the button, I make sure it don't move and let it stay. I look for the cart, whatever they put, and I go and I push it and put it back. But you have to be taught that. You have to be taught that. No one comes in thinking about that. But again, that's what my program tries to do, get people to think. Improving re-entry programs with life skills. A person's chance of successfully re-entering mainstream society is much more likely with life skill training. Formerly incarcerated people need to learn or relearn how to manage his or her attitude, communication, decision making, emotions, scheduling, really the scheduling. I think they probably don't have a problem with scheduling. I know I didn't have a problem with scheduling. I'm like, in the NFL, and I'll say this little quick story as well and move on. But I went to go speak at a prison one time. And if you ever want to go and someone really eyes you down and say, why are you here? Go and talk to people in prison. Because they like, we don't have nothing to lose. Why are you here? The guy asked me that because he's probably looking at, okay, hey, he plays football, you probably just try to do it because you try to get some type of a glory or notoriety or write-up or something. So I told him, I said, you know what, the reason why I'm here, because I was once like you. I said, I was incarcerated for 14 years. So he started thinking, like, 14 years, what do you mean? I said, yeah, I was incarcerated by the NFL for 14 years. They told me when to get up, even though they didn't tell me when to get up. I had to be at practice at 8 o'clock. So I had to get up every morning based off of where I live, every morning at the same time. And took the same route, wore the same uniform that they gave me for each game on Sunday, the same practice uniform. So I told them, I said, after my 14th year, they gave me my papers and said, you were free. So the guy was like, he was like, okay, so I started to make sense to him. But again, principles of life. So that kind of like got me a little bit of more, able to hug them a little bit when I kind of broke it down like that. But the most important thing, we'll keep talking back again about the youth, and the most important thing is saving our youth before they reach that point of no return, getting incarcerated. Rather than incarceration, being incarcerated, first time felony, juvenile offenders, we could require that they attend a life skills seminar. Whether it's mine, whether it's somebody else, it doesn't matter. We are here to save the youth, save the future. And I tell people also, when are adults the most impressionable? Again, we talk about pottery. If you see that picture, it's a picture of pottery, so to speak, at the bottom. But when are adults the most influential? It's when they're children. When is pottery the easiest to form? It's when it's wet. Children, when they are young, they're wet and they're easily formed. So that's why we have to catch them young. And again, it goes back to the house. Starting in the house, what they see in the house. It's all about, it's all begins and ends with the family, like I said. We can also combat youth gang violence by supporting interact families and provide surrogate families for their youth who desperately need role models. And here's some of the programs that the Title Pool 38 Foundation does. Again, these are the key cornerstones. The father-daughter dance. We have that every Valentine's, the week of Valentine's, and I have it here in LaGrange, right out here on Lafayette Parkway at Mike Daniels Recreation Center. So we've been having it here for the last 3 years, but the father-daughter dance has been going on since 2012. Another, we rolled into the father and son event. We do this one a week before Father's Day. This year we did bowling. Last year we did golf. I don't know if we do golf again. A lot of people losing balls. I think they spend more money trying to find balls. So I think if we stick with bowling, at least the ball returns back to you. But we did bowling this year. We did it in Marietta. So I try to do things, places where I've traveled, put my feet down, put my hands. So Charlotte, which we'll get to the one that we're going to do in Charlotte this year. The mother and son. Again, we saying it's about the father, it's about the mother, it's about the family. We have a mother and son. Okay, now mothers, it's your turn. It's your turn because the father and the mother play a vital role. There are things that the mother gives to the children. There are things that the father gives to the children. So we have a mother and son night. And we had that one in August. And usually we try to have that one right before school starts. So we call that one the big back to school celebration for the mothers and the sons. Our foundational activities also include giveaways. Turkey, Thanksgiving is coming up. I've already had one partner reach out to me and ask was I coming back to give out turkeys with them again. So we give out turkeys in Atlanta and give out turkeys here in LaGrange. Again, Mike Daniels Recreation Center has been a great catalyst for the events and things that the foundation tries to do. Youth sports camps, again, exercising. Maybe because I'm an athlete, I just love sports camps. But I just think sports plays a great, I would tell anybody, if you got kids, let your kids play sports, even if they're not good. Because I just feel like you get so many life skills from playing sports. Learning how to work with people who are different from you, don't have the same philosophy as you, but y'all have the same goal in mind. So I just think that's just great. And the information, last page, the information on how to contact, email Tyrone@tyronepool.com. Also, you had the address and the phone number. And one slide that we didn't have up there that I did show was the mother and daughter event. That's the one that we're going to do in Charlotte. And I played in Massachusetts, I played in Indiana, I played in California, I played in Texas. I played for a lot of teams. But they say, hey, if those teams want me, yeah, I must have been pretty good, you know. So, but we're going to try to do events in all those states. But Georgia being my you know, home, LaGrange being where I was born. So, you know, you start where you never forget home, so to speak. So, again, I want to thank Representative Gilliard for giving me the opportunity to be a part. You know, anything I can do, the foundation can do, you know, it's all about helping each other, be better. So, any questions? That concludes my presentation.
I have an initial question. Can you help Atlanta win?
Did I help?
I just want to say that. You said a lot of different parables dealing with holistic programming, and we keep hearing that in every meeting that we're in, holistic. I've seen your seminars, they're motivating. Not every day that someone's going to get a Les Brown or a Tyrone Poole. So, community service, we have community service all over in our school systems. I would like to see some of these schools develop a curriculum where they have to take community service to get some of those seminars, to get the exposure. Kids, we talk about the jails and prisons. Tyrone, we have a program in the Chatham County jails. We had groups of graduates, male and female, and Tyrone came into the jails. And they got a chance to be a two-time Super Bowl champion. So it's life-changing. And they can relate to Tyrone. What I really want to see on my part is how we can get you and others, like the programs that you have, in the curriculum of the school system, in the curriculum of the juvenile, you know, the DJJ, the jails, because people, like I said, everyday people like yourself, they're not going to see those champions. They're seeing images of their champions being those particular dealers. I'm just putting it out there. That's their role models of what they see in their community, is what they see. But they're not going to see a Tyrone Poole every day. So my commitment on my part is to find a way that we can partner and look inside to see what we can do to bring your program and others into the fold, because the GBI is saying it, we can't do it by ourselves. I want to go on record to say passionately today that we've got to have the passion, that we've got to really do something and not take this for granted. And so the money, as Beverly says, that we spend on locking someone up, or the money that we spend on trying to prosecute them, and I'm all for it, because, you know, sometimes you get tired of getting tired of seeing lives being taken. I'm tired of going to funerals, as I continue to say. But somewhere that dollar that makes sense should be also spent on programs like yourself. So I want to commend you, and hopefully on our end, we'll be able to find something that we can do to plug your program in. Any questions?
So can you just
comment to say thank you.
And if I may say this real quick, you know, you mentioned about the schools. I am in talks with some of the schools up in Atlanta. I presented some information to them, so hopefully, you know, they are going to see something big come from it. We should see something big come from it. And also, when I leave from here, I'm actually going over to LaGrange High School to talk to the students there. So if anybody wants to attend, it actually starts at 3:30. So just, again, just trickle-lated down the field.
So can people from the audience say something too?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask him what position he played.
You can look at the size and see what I'm just saying. Did you play?
I'm sorry.
What position did you play?
Oh, I played defensive back. Corner.
Defense.
That's a hitter right there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I guard Julio Jones.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I cover him.
That's not what I was gonna say, though.
And don't let the hype fool you now. I was so fast I could cut the light off and sit back down before the light.
And you can light somebody up too.
I would just like to make a suggestion. I think that as you're formulating your presentation for funding, one of the things, if we go and we work with the juvenile courts, it could be a twofold thing, because in Tyrone's program, they could assign the parents to mandatory attend his life skills training, and they can have the children attend the conflict reconciliation or both. But I think in the conjunction you're addressing all issues, because I think his drive is very important and a key component, as he said. But if you present it like this is what we want you to do, then the courts can take it on, and we can have that assigned. Johnny has to go to conflict, and your mother, you got to go to life skills training, or father, you have to go to life skills training. So that's one way you can present it for funding.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner.
Yeah, I was just going to echo that. So I picked up the mic to say, because oftentimes we listen to our phone calls from inside of the juvenile justice system, and it's alarming to me when the kids call home and they're talking to their parents that, you know, depending on what's going on inside our facilities, they may have to, you know, cross and join other gangs just to survive inside the prisons, inside juvenile justice, which we're trying to address. But then when they call back home, the parents get upset because now they were born into, this is coming from a parent, you were born into this gang, this neighborhood, or this gang that we're all a part of, and now you're going here, don't come back home. So, you know, it's kind of, you know, how do we address that as a state when we dealing with juveniles? These are not adults. These are, you know, this is kids, and you're telling your own kid not to come back home. So I think life skills is an important piece of that as well, to try to get to the parents and make it a mandatory thing too, so they can come in and maybe just bring it all together. And go Cowboys, by the way.
Dak Prescott, he's gonna get that big contract. But I'll say this: the one thing I thank God that I have influence, and most of the time, you know, when you have influence, I use the analogy: money and music are neutral. Music is neutral until you put lyrics behind it. Money is neutral until it gets into the wrong hands or right hands. So myself having notoriety and also having other guys that I can lean on.
Like Herschel.
Yeah, exactly.
I make this public appeal right now, like Herschel Walker. If you
Make Herschel, yeah, exactly. And, you know, just to have the ability to reach back, because regardless if they're in the game or not, they all have a little childhood hero, you know, that I may not be able to reach, but I have influence. Like I said, if you like Herschel Walker, you know, hey, Herschel, do it. Herschel comes to the program, take that same kid, talk to him, and then boom, you know, we reach it like that. And then the program itself is take-home material. You take them, so not only do you get it here, but it comes, like I said, the program, when I say here, wherever the program is being displayed, but it comes with a study guide that goes home with them. So it's like a curriculum that you can learn here with the people that are going to teach it to you, but then you can take it home and make it like assignments. So they can come back, it could be a one-day program, it could be a week program, it could be a whole semester program. So that's the beauty about the program, and I thank God for the opportunity of myself, you know, playing in the NFL, because I got a lot of buddies. Right now I got a kid, I coach my son, 8th grade team. I got so many stories, you got to shut me up and speak or two. But I coach my son, 8th grade team, and the quarterback, I told the quarterback, I said, to help us win, you know, I said, if you throw 30 touchdowns, because I asked his dad, who's the offensive coordinator, I said, how many touchdowns has a middle school 8th grade, what's considered grade? He said, well, about 17, 18 is awesome. And his son was already like at 19. So I had to up the ante. I said, okay, if he throws 30 touchdowns, which if he throws 30 touchdowns, we got to win the season. I said, I'll get him to talk to the GOAT. He can talk to Tom Brady. I'll call Tom Brady to see. Oh, man, his eyes lit up. You know, I didn't play quarterback, but because of who I'm connected to, you know, I can get him to do something that pushes him. So the same thing, these kids in games. You know, hey, who's your favorite hero? You know, Jim Brown, or it could be, you know, Representative Gilliard, you know. But hey, can you come and talk to the kids? And boom, that's how you reach them, that's how you change them.
And you hit the nail on the head and talk to you afterwards. I know you got to go. I'll take your contact information because that's the kind of approach that I was looking at, and going back to what you were saying earlier about incentivizing it. We got to have some kind of incentive for the youth to stay on the right track, and their influence are, you know, athletes, musicians, actors, and you guys have more of an influence on them and getting them on the right path to do the right thing than myself. Who haven't done it. So I think it's going to take a village to make it come together. But if we have partners like you and your friends to kind of help that, I think that'll be a start to solve our issues.
Yes, sir.
I have. Go ahead.
Just in case you have to run out here, I appreciate what you're doing, but we've got quite a number of schools up in Atlanta, especially Cobb, North Fulton, a little bit of Gwinnett. We love bringing people such as yourself in with a positive message. So if you're looking to do assemblies, you're looking to get dug in, please use us as a resource. I mean, you're a rock star, and they would love to have you, and we can make that happen.
All the time, I never knew he could sing, everybody. I'm just in awe.
And thank you so much. Thank you so much for your presentation and what you're doing. And I just wanted to reiterate or follow up on one of the things you said, because it's also so important to expose the parents to this, and especially in the work that we do with in child support and non-custodial parents, which are often fathers, and giving them these skills and exposure to these things then help them to teach their children and make sure. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Poole, thank you so much. You're going to hang around because I know
Yes, sir.
We're going to visit your school later on. We're going to take a lunch break. We do have an opportunity in the Student Center. They have some opportunities. We're going to get back in the next 20 minutes. And we're going to come back to the Georgia Retailers Association, as well as we have a great presentation from GMA. We thank you for your support and your patience. When we were in Atlanta, I had a chance to meet Mr. Dominique Stokes, and then we brought him to Savannah, Georgia for our meeting. And we talked about the effects of gangs, youth, and crime on our businesses. So today, we're following up with that, and we're glad to have Mr. Thomas Busey. I want to make sure I pronounced that right. I thought, so little man, thank you, so was he. I thought I was right. From the Georgia Retailers Association. And I want to go on record to say we really appreciate the work that y'all are doing across the state, and looking forward to this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, members of the committee. I was in the meeting in Augusta, and listening to this meeting, you know, we see crime, we see organized crime, we see gang crime through our lens as the retail industry in Georgia, but it's very enlightening to hear of other things going on and where the effects are elsewhere in communities and families. And I think that, Mr. Chairman, I commend you for facilitating this discussion so that everyone can be aware of how this touches different aspects of the state. As the chairman said, I'm the executive director of the Georgia Retailers, and we are the trade association that represents the retail industry in the state. And before I kind of give you a rundown of our economic impact and what we do, and then go on to how organized retail crime affects us, I would like to thank Mr. Poole for returning his shopping cart. That's, we struggle with that so much everywhere, and so it's just, that really warmed my heart to have him say that. Well, the retail industry in Georgia, we're 11% of all employees in Georgia. We have over 888,000 separate retail outlets in the state. I'm sorry, 888,000 direct retail employees in the state, 120,000 retail outlets in the state. We also support an additional 1.2 million jobs in Georgia. So we're in every community, we're in every county, we're in every city, we're in every unincorporated area. Whether you're talking about a big box store or you're talking about a small boutique, or it doesn't matter, we're everywhere, we represent them all. Our economic impact that we have to the state, the direct GDP impact we have is $35 million. The total GDP impact is $76.6 billion. And in 2008, I pulled this from the Department of Revenue, we are responsible for, in just sales and use tax, that doesn't take into account property tax and it doesn't take into account income tax, just sales and use tax in Georgia, we contribute $6.5 billion to the state and our county and city partners. But I'm not here to tell you that today. What I'm here to talk about is organized retail crime. And we don't call gang activity in my industry, we call it organized retail crime. Because it may not be typical gangs and street gangs that everyone in this room is familiar with. There's also other organized criminal elements, and it all fits in. As big of an industry as we are, everything touches us in some way or form. And gang violence and gang activity, it's no different. So organized retail crime is the most pervasive economic and public safety problem that you've never heard of. Because to this point, we have not done a very good job as an industry of telling this story, and that's why we're here today. So, start off with this fact, Atlanta is actually number 6 nationally on the list of cities where organized retail crimes are committed. So of all the cities in the country, Atlanta is number 6. In organized retail crime, and I alluded to it a minute ago, there is significant overlap between gang activity, opioid abuse, robbery, fraud, and prostitution, all intersecting at organized retail crime. To define that, organized retail crime involves the association of 2 or more persons engaged in illegally obtaining retail merchandise in substantial quantities through both theft and fraud as part of unlawful commercial enterprise. These crime rings steal primarily from retail organizations, and their purpose isn't to steal these products and for personal use. It's to steal them, flip them for financial gain. Gang activity, in fact, an individual booster, and that's what we call someone who steals under an organized retail crime MO. In a lot of cases, an individual booster can earn over $100,000 a year just by, it's their job to go out every day and use us as an ATM. Mr. Chairman, you said something during the last presentation and it stuck with me. Tired of getting tired? We're tired of getting tired. We're tired of getting tired of it, and we're looking for partnerships. We're looking for anything that we can to stem this tide. With the reach and sophistication of these networks, the advancements in technology, the potential profitability of this illegitimate venture, and the diverse ways that it can impact retail businesses, today's professional criminals are attacking retailers with a voracious appetite. They're highly motivated, they're mobile, and the ability to resell and move product has climbed to an unprecedented level. In the retail industry, we have a 71% year-over-year increase in organized retail crime. Organized retail crime accounts for more than double that of other property crimes, such as robbery, larceny, burglary, and auto thefts combined. The gravity of the losses attributed to ORC operations have grown so significant that we're tired of getting tired, and that's why we're here to talk about it. Here's some key concepts, again, to kind of define what this is. Groups of 2 or more people working together to steal illegally obtained merchandise and otherwise to defraud retail organizations. It has a wide geographic area. Back in August, and when I say wide, and this goes not just throughout the state of Georgia, which is a pretty large geographic territory, but throughout the southeast, throughout the country. Back in August in Covington, there was a police chase initiated by Covington Police. It was a large SUV going down a road. The Covington Police initiated an arrest. The SUV took off. GSP got involved, did a pit maneuver on the vehicle. The vehicle crashed on the side of the road. Inside the vehicle were 3 people from New York. Those 3 people had been going down the eastern seaboard and stealing and returning back to New York retail merchandise. In that SUV was over $50,000 worth of retail merchandise. So I'm not here to ask you guys to help us go after a 15-year-old stealing a candy bar. That is not what we're talking about. Just forget that, get it out of your mind. We're talking about sophisticated, organized retail crime. Some of the costs to ORC, it runs our industry on average about $30 billion a year, without diming out specific companies. In certain instances, if you have a large big box store in an urban location or a suburban location, the shrink, just the external shrink in that one store can sometimes run upwards of $1 million just for one location for 1 year of property walking out of that store. This affects retailers of all shapes and sizes. Not just your big box, but your mom and pops, your grocery stores, your convenience stores. In 2017, 91.6% of retailers were hit by organized retail crime. And again, we're not talking about a 15-year-old stealing candy. We're talking about organized retail crime. During the commission of those crimes, a survey was done by the Loss Prevention Research Council. 44% of offenders admit to using violence during these organized retail crime thefts. The costs are also significant. To jump back to that, for the state of Georgia and our communities, these are the impacts. Lost tax revenue. I've heard a lot of conversations about programs that can be used to get youth out of this lifestyle. We're in favor of that. But you gotta have tax revenue to pay for that. So if you've got this much product walking out of the store, that's that much less that our law enforcement, our prosecutors, our communities have to do with it. So it hurts us on the front end, it hurts us on the back end. Our customers are subject to higher prices. We just cannot pass prices on to merchandise that we're losing. Another huge aspect of this is location selection. And the unfortunate, as the chairman and I were talking before, the unfortunate reality is that if you have communities with high gang activity, high organized retail crime activity, you're not going to get a grocery store to go there. That's going to continue to be a food desert. You're not going to get a general retailer to go there because to them, the business decision is it just doesn't work. If the numbers don't work, they can't go. Another thing is product availability. Now, in some instances, you'll have stores that will be out of some product, not because they sold it, but because it left. And I can give you an idea of kind of some of the top target products that these guys go for. Generally, it's going to be small, high value. Something that's easier to transport, easy to fence, easy to conceal. Designer clothes, huge. Laundry detergent, huge. Infant formula, huge. Extremely huge. In fact, I would challenge all of you to go to Craigslist, wherever you live, type in infant formula. Now you'll see some of the stuff, oh, we have 10 cans of this, we have 5 cans of this, we have 5. That's just the front. If you were to contact that number, call that number, meet up with that person, I think you would find that they have way more than 10 cans of infant formula they'd be willing to sell. Razor blades, designer handbags, denim pants, cell phones, teeth whitening strips, tools. Small, high value, easy to fence. And when I talk about fences, we need to talk about technology. In the past, when organized retail crime, before the advent of the internet, before the advent of cell phones, it's really an analog process. You would take it back to your buyer would know a guy. You'd go to a guy. Now, Craigslist, eBay, online marketplaces. It's exceptionally easy to offload this stuff without a central apparatus, but a lot of people do use a central apparatus. And a lot of the boosters, the majority of the boosters, they're not making 100,000 in illegal funds doing this. They're scraping by because they're vulnerable populations. They're children, they're drug addicts. They get a list in a lot of instances. Say I'm the buyer. Well, I'm gonna have this network of people that I'm gonna send out day to day. And I'm gonna know what I want. I'm gonna know what I need. I'm gonna need 3 TVs, 10 cases of laundry detergent, and a bunch of razor blades. That's what the people I'm selling to want. So I'm gonna take you, and I'm gonna give you that list, and I'm gonna say, not only am I gonna say, I want you to steal this, this, and this, don't go over that limit, because that's the felony threshold. Oh, so you've gotten 3 felonies in this jurisdiction. Well, the 4th, or 3 misdemeanors in this jurisdiction. The 4th is going to trigger a felony. Well, let's go over here. Hopefully they won't notice. It's extremely, extremely complicated. The main tactic that we're seeing and that we're trying to fight right now is refund fraud. And I'm glad that our friends at the Prosecuting Attorneys Council is here in the room, and we've had some conversations with the Attorney General about this. Refund fraud accounts for 21% of all returns without a receipt are refund fraud. So this is the anatomy of how a typical refund fraud is going to go. I'm going to go into, we'll just say Home Depot, for example. Now, there at the front, we've all been to Home Depot. There's a $200 drill right there by self-checkout. So let's say I take that $200 drill and I run out of the store. They're not going to touch me. The liability's too high. They're not going to tackle me. They'll try to stop me if I'm willing to stop. So I'm going to take that $200 drill. Cool. Now I could take it to a pawn shop, but legitimate pawn shops have to keep a log of all their transactions. Now, if I have a buyer for it, I can take it to a buyer. But I could also just as easily take it back to another Home Depot, not the location I stole it from, and return it without a receipt. Now that Home Depot is going to record my ID, which at this point is probably fake, because I do this all the time, and I know what I'm doing. They're going to take my ID, they're going to take my information, they're going to give me a $200 store value gift card. They're not going to give me cash. So I'm going to take that $200 store value gift card, and I'm going to go find a person or a merchant or a website where I can sell that gift card. Maybe I get $50. Maybe I get lucky, I get $100. But now, I've got money that I didn't have. That disreputable merchant or whoever down the chain gets that. Now they've got $200 worth of Home Depot store credit that they can go and get what they want to resell. You know what just happened there? When we were talking about sales tax? Now the state, and the counties, and the cities just lost out on revenue twice. So that's kind of the anatomy of what they're doing now. We fight this as best we can. We do not want this to happen in our stores, and the reason that we've been kind of reticent about telling it is we want our customers to feel safe in our stores. Our customers are our #1 priority. Serving the communities of customers, the communities that we're in, that's priority #1 for us. So we have to strike a balance. We're not going to carry weapons. We're not going to form tackle folks in the parking lot. We'll try to get people to stop, but that's where law enforcement partnerships for us are very important. We changed point of sale policies. Like I said, if you would have asked someone 10 years ago if they were going to record someone's ID, if they came in to do a return for a transaction that they didn't have a receipt for, we're not going to do that. It's going to cost a lot of money. Well, we're doing that now. I'm sure you've all seen, if you go into a store and you've seen why they have the razor blades locked up. You know, why is there spider packaging on everything? Or just a lot of the things that I mentioned. Because we know, we have the analytics. That's the first thing to go out the door. From the And these companies spend a ton of money on this. We run an organization inside the Georgia Retailers called the Georgia Retailers Organized Crime Alliance. So when you guys are looking at things, we think that we can provide a value, especially from the enforcement side, to some things that we're already doing. A lot of our stores, especially our large companies, they already have robust loss prevention, asset protection mechanisms. What we facilitate is getting all those guys together. We have a once-a-month meeting. Right now it's mainly in Atlanta, but we have a once-a-month meeting where we get all these guys together with representatives from GBI, with representatives from as many local law enforcement jurisdictions that want to participate, and we have information sharing sessions. These are the products that we've seen leave these stores in this area. Has anyone else that carries this merchandise seen something similar? Do you have video? Do you have anything? And so what we do is we help facilitate that conversation between private industry and law enforcement to kind of nail down on these professions. Sometimes we have folks that this will cover several states, especially in border areas. Well, that person, we saw that person in Huntsville, Alabama do this. Now they're in Florida or Georgia. So it's multi-jurisdictional. We try to facilitate that as best we can. To illustrate the problem, and this kind of highlights some of the things that especially I've heard this morning about relationships, about families, and about children. Twice now we've done what we call organized retail crime blitzes. We've done one in Dunwoody, we've done one in Douglasville. We'll partner with those local law enforcement, and we will stock a retail-heavy area with as many loss prevention people as we have available. We guarantee our support 100% to law enforcement. They guarantee their support 100% to us. If you try to steal a toothpick during these 2 days that we do this, we're going to see. And we're going to see. But to highlight, once we go on here, and to really illustrate the problem, we've seen every aspect. We've seen carts get loaded up and pushed out. We've seen addicts come in first thing in the morning and steal $150 worth of stuff with needle tracks up and down her arms, with car seats in her car, and she'll be out later that afternoon. But why is she there? Well, she's there to feed her habit. She's hitting her ATM for that morning, so then she can go to her dealer. And tell me that the drugs and the opioid epidemic that the drugs feed, even on the addict side, doesn't feed into gang activity that this study committee is trying to get at. The other thing that we've seen, again, speaking of families, I think this was the saddest thing, but a mom teaching her 13-year-old daughter to shoplift, a mom who has multiple shoplifting convictions, teaching her 13-year-old daughter how to shoplift while her 4-year-old daughter is there with her. It's enough to break her heart. I don't know that we have the answers as retail, but these are stories that we think that need to be told, that people need to be aware of. We don't like this happening in our stores. None of us like this happening in our state. So we're here to help kind of provide solutions, provide assistance where we can. Some of the things, and it's not all doom and gloom, some of the things that our companies are doing to help this process, I think a lot of this, when it comes to youth diversion from gangs, is it not also a question that needs to be asked from a workforce development standpoint? Is there not some traction there to where you have kids that think that that's their only option? Some of our companies are doing some pretty, I think, advanced things in this area. Best Buy, for example, is in the process of rolling out across the country something called Teen Tech Centers. They will be opening one in Georgia, I believe, in 2020, and I'm happy to let you guys know about that as it happens. But going to youth and making sure that they have access to technology, making sure they have access to how to use technology. In a lot of the instances of things that we've talked about in this study committee, that's not there. And I know there may be other building block skills that you need to meet for some of these kids before that, but I think it's an important part of the puzzle. Home Depot and Novellus have created a partnership for educational opportunities in the trades and construction fields. I mean, you look at Atlanta and how much stuff is getting built, even though all of us that live in Atlanta, I really wish it wouldn't, because getting around is hard enough as it is. But there's jobs there, there's opportunities to show kids that, I mean, we're in a technical college. Not everybody needs to go be an English major. There's opportunities there in the trades. We've got companies that are willing to help with that. So while we're sitting here, and this is a huge issue to us, it impacts us greatly, it impacts Georgia greatly, we do have some positive things to share. In the General Assembly, just for y'all's information, on the gift card, I mentioned that House Bill 488, which is presently in the Judiciary and Civil Committee, that we create a registry to give law enforcement, prosecutors, and there's details that we need to work out on it, the tools to go out and track these secondary transactions in the gift card market. Do y'all remember 10 years ago, all the problems the state was having with organized crime, drugs, and metal stuff? I mean, folks were just straight up stealing refrigerators outside people's houses, going under new developments, ripping copper. Well, the folks that were buying that, they put a very similar registry on that. That's really what we're trying to replicate. I think it'd be a great tool. So that's kind of the picture about organized crime, gang activity, drugs, how it all intersects at your friendly local neighborhood retailer. And we're here to help with the conversation, and we're here to help the committee, any way we can. And with that, I'll be open to taking any questions you got.
Certainly is a plethora of information that you would never have known. I'll give you an example. We talked about it in my district. There was a grocery store that was in a pretty midtown, downtown area, borderline, in an area where there might have been some elements. And so what has happened is that because of the theft and the theft and the theft, the first thing, the prices went up. People didn't understand why the prices went up. And then eventually the store closed down. And then now we have food deserts. And so another component of my district, people say we need to have a grocery store, and then we're reaching out to retailers and they say, I ain't coming up in there.
Right.
So the legislation part I know is going to be very pertinent and important. And then on another end, holistically, it would seem that the community has to get involved if we care about having retailers in our communities.
Right.
So I definitely think that we need to get more outreach and have retailers educate the community from the local standpoint, and the municipalities have to take some type of approach.
We're happy to be part of any of those conversations. We love opening stores. We hate closing stores. That is the biggest pain. And we don't just close stores to close stores, but we love opening stores. We love opening stores. And we're happy to have that conversation at any time.
The amount of revenue that you're losing supersedes an opportunity for us that we could have had some great programming. I mean, I think 30% and in another areas, but you mentioned the resale part.
Right.
Prosecution-wise, and I'm very ready to use that word, but when we have, is that like a resurface of just goods in our communities that we might not know about? You mentioned the social network of Craigslist, etc.
Yes. There are, what you'll generally see is, like I said before, disreputable pawn shops that will buy stuff and resell it. One retailer, I kind of have a case study on them that they did, but they kept having high-end vacuum cleaners stolen from them. And so a lot of these companies have very sophisticated, organized retail crime mechanisms to where we'll investigate the case. We know resources in law enforcement and in prosecutors' offices are there. everyone is always being asked to do more with less. We'll make the case. This retailer made the case. They did the investigation. They tied it up with a bow and handed it to me. And just on high-end vacuum cleaners at one disreputable pawn shop in Northwest Georgia, we were talking $150,000. Also, stacks of gift cards, which they also got them on, I think, some identity fraud. So it's not just, I stole this TV, I'm calling you because you're my friends, and hey man, I got this TV, do you want it? Give me $20. Like that's not what it is. It's the livelihood for these criminals. It is the ATM machine for criminal elements is a retail store. So I'll get to you offline. There's some things I want to share with you, but I don't want to share about some other things that we're working on that I think will be very exciting to hear.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions?
One of the things that the chairman and I were discussing during the break is the need for employers to start stepping up and maybe second chance or hiring returning citizens. And what an amazing resource. I don't know if that's a conversation, but there are tax incentives for employers that hire returning citizens. Right. There are special insurance to insure. And so there's a lot of that needs to get out, but I'm wondering if that's a discussion that could continue to where we're finding businesses that could be incented to be able to give maybe somebody a second chance before they've blown it too big, whatever, I think is huge. And then my second part was, do you guys overlap with the GBI on credit card fraud? Because I know that's a booming business when it comes to, and it affects y'all too.
It absolutely.
But don't forget the first part.
So I'll answer the second part. It absolutely is, and especially in our larger companies, when we are investigating that, we are plugged in with a GBI. To answer your first question, that is an individual company decision, not something that I could say, it's a trade association, but it's a conversation that I'd be happy to facilitate. So give me a call and let's talk more about it. Yes, and I'll see if I can point you in the direction of the folks to have that conversation.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
I know that you were talking about the credit card industry.
It's unbelievable. I had a kid, I was at a school this past week, and this happened to be freshmen at a school we're doing some things with. High-risk kind of kids in a little tougher school, and the assignment that the teacher, they were going around saying, if you had a free day, you could do anything you want to do. What do you do? And these brilliant kids would say these beautiful things, and a lot of them, this one kid came to him, he didn't even look the part. He said he'd spend the entire day researching credit card scams. My daughter, who's never been involved in anything like that, she just said, Dad, you make $5,000 a day. She's a suburban kid out there. Kids outside of the whole gang thing are learning that's easy money, dark web, learning these scams, and I'm thinking, man, this is a tsunami that is coming, and I'm sure the gangs are getting into it because it's
absolutely. And I think it's, and to go back to that though, when we were doing these organized retail crime blitzes, we weren't just capturing retail crimes. We would capture outstanding warrants, drug possession, and this is what made me think of it. One gentleman who was stealing, it was misdemeanor, I think it was right around $175 worth of stuff out of the store. In his backpack, on his person, he had 26 fraudulent credit cards. And he had been arrested at a store 10 days earlier in another jurisdiction. The only reason that we knew that in real time is because the loss prevention person that was kind of backfilling us that day is usually in that other jurisdiction. And he looked at us like, didn't I see you 10 days ago? I was like, yeah. But he thought he was going to be out again in a couple hours because it was misdemeanor. I guess he forgot he had all those Russian credit cards on him. He had got that.
Well, I think one thing you said that I hope you emphasize on, you said organized crime.
Yes.
And so we need to bring that back to the premise of when we think about these gangs, that it's not just so much detrimental, abusive, criminal, violent crime, it's now it's a business.
Right. Gangs are organized crime with a proper noun name. There's other things that operate just as gangs, but they do not have maybe the nationwide infrastructure or the official name. You can't point to it and say that's Bloods, that's Crips, that's Gangster Disciples, whatever. But it's no different. It is no different in how it operates and the ends that it wants to see. And the people, specifically to the purview of this committee, the people on which it preys. The young, the vulnerable.
Any other questions?
Thank you again for your presentation. But I'm sitting here thinking about retail establishments and grocery stores that close because of this. And probably everybody here has had things close in their neighborhoods. But I'm just curious in terms of what kinds of communications are going on with the retail establishment and maybe local government or local law enforcement in order to try to prevent these things? Are there some specific programs or things? I understand the whole liability piece, not chasing people, but as a community, if you know this is about to happen to your local Kroger, bringing the community into it may help to stem some of it. And so are there some things out there, and kind of the question that I asked earlier is how can we better help with this?
Thank you for your question. The conversation, if there is a retail outlet that is having a problem, they know who their beat cops are, they know who their chief is, they are having those conversations. But it's not in a vacuum, and I think it is a funding and it's a resource issue and a time as a resource issue. If you've got a retail outlet that is to that point where it may be considering relocating because of the amount of loss that it's taking in this venue, the chances are that law enforcement is already stretched so thin with other crimes that they have to prioritize that this gets a backseat. Because while in the survey, 44% of these thefts do involve violence, the majority of them don't. So if you have limited time, limited money as law enforcement or as a city government or a county government, you've got to prioritize. And a lot of times we end up down the ladder. And that's frustrating for us, but it's understandable. But those conversations very much happen. Very much happen.
May I add something to that? Can I add something to that? You mind, Mr. Dillon? Speaking not from this organization, from prior law enforcement, he's absolutely correct. The business aspect is going to take a back seat because the strains that they put on law enforcement. One facility or business can actually have law enforcement responding in just a single shift numerous times of the day where that department only has 4 or 5 officers on the street. So they're almost allocating an officer just for that business for almost 12 hours of handling shoplifting calls for numerous hours, that when it got to the police department, the elected officials say, hey, we're spending too much time over there. How can we, as a government, as a department, offset the cost? Now they want to have the discussion about how do we charge that business for having to respond to those calls. So that's kind of wrong because that is a service. So that is one thing that they try to do, is almost get into the conversation of now let's charge them even more, so they lose even more money at that point. I just wanted to add that in because that was a great question.
And to add to that, we don't take it lying down. If it's an area that is sufficiently bad enough, we will hire off-duty local law enforcement. That is not cheap. but it's something that we will do. If a store has closed, we've gone through everything that we can from a business to keep that thing open. And the unfortunate reality is just sometimes you can only do so much. But and I really wanted to mention the hiring opportunity in law enforcement to that end, so because I think that's an important part of it.
I want to emphasize one thing I think that the retailers can look at is we need to make sure we have the proper training of soft skills for the employees to take ownership of that business and not just take it as a lukewarm job. I've gone into establishments where someone's working, they don't care. I'm watching, I'm a customer, and I'm watching folks shoplift and all the above, and then the employee is sitting there, oh, I don't care, whatever. So there has to be a soft skill, take ownership type, some type of training, so that when they're hired, they're not only just watching, they're taking ownership. This is my company, and I'm going to look out for the company, because a lot of people are not.
But I think, Mr. Chairman, in the defense of the industry, that those observations may be the exception and not the rule. I think we tend to remember, you know, and especially social encounters, retail encounters, we always remember the stuff that's maybe not the best. We tend not to remember the stuff that is the best. So I think for the most part, we do a real good job of that. You're going to have, I mean, we have what, 888,000 direct employees? We have some bad apples in there, but for the most part, I think we're doing okay on that.
I agree. I'm just giving
I understand.
one discussion. I guess you know, a lot of times when we look at our communities, I just think it's, and you are doing a great job, a detriment that we're losing some of those viable pieces that we need. Here again, as a CEO of Feed the Hungry, people come to us.
That's right.
Because now the stores are not there. I don't have fresh produce. I don't have the necessity. So we're going to have to look at seeing how we can get involved more with what you're doing, because we need you in every facet in our communities.
We're happy to partner with anybody at any time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much. Let me make sure before we go on, and I want to thank the retailers. Every time we look behind at the Georgia General Assembly, we are reminded of all the goodies that are back there for us every morning in the session. So we do have representation from GMA and ACCJ. I'm sorry. So we're going to, before we bring them up, because I'm looking forward to your presentation, and I want to thank you for your involvement in getting the surveys out to 159 counties. It really was very instrumental. Is there anyone else in the audience that might want to make a comment in reference to any suggestions, or anyone from the committee? We're just going to open up for about 10 minutes or so before, and give them a chance as they can come up and get ready. We'll go right into it. Does anyone have anything to add to it? Once again, we want to thank you all, and we asked in the inception about getting GMA and ACCG involved, because we couldn't do it all. We wouldn't be omnipresent in 159 counties. So we're so thankful for you all on today. And if you can just give your names and titles, we want to give you the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, members of the committee. I am Tamesa Bailey. I'm the newest Government Relations Associate with the Georgia Municipal Association. I just started July 29th, so I'm excited to be here.
I'm Deborah Nesbitt. I'm Associate Legislative Director for ACCG, and I handle public safety and courts and health and human services for them, and I've been with ACCG 10 years now.
So as Chairman mentioned, we, ACCG and GMA, partnered to send out a gang and youth violence survey to 538 cities and 159 counties, so that we could get a look at what this problem is like statewide. And so we worked together to make sure that we could get it to all of our city and county officials, because as we say at GMA, if you've seen one city, you've just seen one city. And so each local government has different issues, and there are different solutions that can be crafted for those different issues. So this survey was designed to account for a lot of those differences. So The basic gist of the survey was just, as I said, was to just get information about what the problem looks like. So the first question we asked is, does your local government have gang activity there? We want to get a baseline of, do you have it or do you not? And then moving forward, if they answered yes, we want to know what type of gang activity is going on there. Is it violent crimes? Are you seeing assaults, shootings, things of that nature, some of the stuff we've talked about today? Or is it crimes against property? Is it organized retail theft, the kind of stuff that Retail Association just spoke about? Are you having drug crimes or anything else? Then next we have a specific question that focuses on human trafficking, because we have also heard of conversations of gangs getting involved in that, so we wanted to have a question specifically tailored to that. Has gang violence increased or decreased in your city over time? Because as we have sort of talked about in some of these meetings, we've seen this escalate over the years, and so we wanted to see what is that looking like for our cities and counties. And then we know that a major part of this study committee is to look at the solutions for the gang problem that we have in the state. And so we wanted to know what type of programs or community initiatives do you have in your local jurisdiction that is addressing the gang issue. And then lastly, we asked about resources, if they feel like they needed additional resources. So now we're going to get into the results. So what we asked of the 538 cities and 159 counties, we had 124 cities to respond to the survey. So someone in the municipality, an official responded to the survey, or someone part of the county government responded. And we asked, what is the population of your city? Because we know that we have some really small cities in the state of Georgia. We have some, so we had, for the most part, most of them were between 5,000 and 49,000, 50,000. So our medium-sized cities and the same with counties. So you can just take a look. So we had a varied number of types of cities responding and counties responding to the survey. So now getting deeper into the results. Is your city currently experiencing gang violence? So of the 124 cities that responded, 60 of the respondents said that they are not currently experiencing it. But 64 of the respondents said that they are currently experiencing gang activity in their local government. So we have a slight majority of the respondents said that they are experiencing this. So that's, it's more than half are having problems with this activity in their local jurisdiction.
Yeah, and so on the county side, as you can see, 19 of the 63 counties who responded were not currently experiencing gang violence. 37 of the 63 said that they were experiencing gang violence. But there's a caveat here in that people who work at the county level and county administration may not always know what's going on with those local retailers, or what the sheriff's department might be investigating, because county government's a little different than city government in that the sheriffs are constitutional officers and they're elected, and so they're dealing with their issues within the sheriff's department, and the counties may not always be aware of how prevalent it might be in that county.
And this is where we get into the types of things that are happening. So rather than sort of speculating about it, we had people say to us, what is it that you're actually seeing in your county or your city? And so we saw a lot of 53 or 82% of the cities reported drug crimes. So, drug dealing and things of that nature. And 76% reported crimes against property. So a city or a county responding to this survey could click any of these. So that's why you see there's large percentages, sorry. So a city could be experiencing both drug crimes, property crimes, violent crimes, and whatever they were experiencing, and they would just sort of notate that in the survey. And so we had, 67% reporting violent crimes, and so we're seeing a wide swath of different things going on in our cities. And a lot of the things that we have already talked about here today is what's going on.
Yeah, and as you can see from the county spread as well, it looks like it's mostly property crimes, drug crimes, and violent crime are the main ones that they're checking as experiencing problems with.
Absolutely. And for us, it was drug crimes, which was the top for the cities. Are gangs in your city involved in human trafficking? This was a really big issue, so we wanted to make sure that we address this. And of the 124 cities that responded, the majority of them said they didn't know. As we know, this is kind of a thing that's under the radar. There's not a lot of ways to kind of know. So we had the majority of them said they weren't aware, but 10% did say that they are aware that gangs in their communities are involved in human trafficking.
Yeah, and obviously ours was a little bit lower. Most of the counties did not know if that was involved in any way with the gangs. We only had 2 counties respond yes.
Increases and decreases. So what has this been getting worse? Has it been getting better? What does this look like? So for us, for the 124 cities who responded, 60%, which is over half, said that this activity has increased over the past 3 years, which is a short amount of time, but they've still been able to see an increase in the types of activities that we just mentioned happening in their cities and towns. And 15 cities saw a decrease, so that's good. We're not sure what has contributed to that, but thought that was interesting to know.
Yeah, we had 32 of the respondents, or 86% of the counties had seen an increase, with only one saying that they had seen a decrease.
So it does appear that it has been getting just a little bit more intense over the past 3 years for cities and counties. And then this question is about the programs that we have. Does your city have any programs to address gang violence? And 43% said yes, 48% said no, so there's some room there for improvement of seeing what we can implement in the cities or if there can be something done. 82% of the ones who said yes, we do have programs, said that they have programs that are focused directly on youth. And so we talked about in these committee meetings that we do need to be focusing on the young people and trying to catch them before they get into the gang. So a lot of our cities are seeing the need for that and are actually doing that. 50% report participation in federal programs, so programs that have federal funding to sort of combat this issue. So we are seeing that our cities are doing something to combat this.
And on the county side, only 15 of the counties responded that they did have a program. And most of those were, again, focused on youth. I really don't know that they even know where to begin or how to set up a program or really how to go about combating this. And so I think in many ways, the local governments are looking for some direction or guidance on what's effective and how can they help partner to reduce the gang activity.
Absolutely. I'm sure that's the same for cities as well. And then the last question is about resources. So the 64 cities who responded, 58% indicated that they do have a need for resources. So whether it's financial resources, whether it's educational resources, as you just mentioned about how to get programs started and how can we implement this and what does this need to look like. So that is kind of the gist of that.
Yeah, and counties, the same thing. They all indicated a need for resources. But again, I'm not sure that they know what resources they need.
Absolutely. So that concludes the survey report. I hope that the information was useful and we're open to questions.
Thank you so much for as I was talking to Matt earlier, and Matt's is sitting here with us and putting up with us for all these meetings. He's with our budget analysis part and with the state, and we talked about compiling this information to actually serve a report. One of the things I can say moving forward is we still need to continue help from both parties educating those municipalities. So that, because I see up here, you were talking about some of them might not know about how to do a program or how to tackle it. You know, we're facing the same thing in Chatham County where we have a city over here and the county saying, I don't know if we have that much of a problem.
Right.
So we'd like to continue to work in getting the information out. If you can help us with that, this will come in tremendously handy for us. I can tell you. And,
anything we can do, just reach out.
Absolutely. We're glad that we could provide it for you.
Jack, do you want to have any questions?
I think that there's a huge need for people to understand what human trafficking is, because a lot of people think cartels and put them on a plane and send them to another country, and it's like gangs are all over this. Use little, motels and everything, having a girl there, or boys, whatever. But I think that those were alarming stats that I don't think that we have a clue a lot of times. But those are, if we're going to really hit this thing from all angles, that is a huge hope, I believe.
Right.
And I think that you guys illustrate that. That's why that's so valuable.
Right.
Very valuable.
I make a good pitch to you before the 15th again. If we can just send something out to our leaders, mayors, or county commission chairs to send a representative to the Capitol on November 15th for our final meeting. We might not get 159, but we might get 10%. So we want to make sure we get everyone involved. We have the German municipality in Savannah, Richmond Hill. And even though they don't have problems with gangs yet, they're taking a proactive approach already. So
We'll get that notice out.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just one quick question. Thank you for your presentation. That was very interesting. In terms of the normal reply rate, it was alarming to me that so many didn't respond. Is that kind of normal, what you get in terms of responses to surveys?
From the county side, we had 63 of 159, so that's a little less than half. And usually we get around half, a little more than half. I think the city's response rate was a little lower.
Yeah.
But people are busy, and when you get into a small city, they may only have one or two employees and that kind of thing. We can usually keep pounding them until we can get, I think the most I have ever gotten was 156 of the 159 counties responding. That was after us calling them and saying, we really need this information. That took quite a long time to get that information. For us, that's
about normal.
Yeah, for us.
Is that about normal for the cities as well?
Well, I just started July 29th. But as I was talking to my other colleague, this is kind of how.
That's about how.
Yes,
Okay.
kind of about how.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your involvement.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Well, we're making history in LaGrange, Georgia. According to everything that I'm looking at, we're actually getting ready to wrap up unless any members have anything to say prior. Okay. Well, we'll make some history. Let me thank you all, and especially for taking the time to come out today. Continue to look forward to November 15th. We'll be in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Georgia State Capitol, starting at 9 a.m. It will be a full day, and we thank you so much. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.